Hello, everybody. Welcome to Soulspeak. Today we are going to be talking about the 2020 elections. This will be round one of what I presume will be three. First, a quick breakdown of what Soulspeak is. Basically, it is a panel stream. As you can see, I try to find the best and the brightest Twitch has to offer, and we bring them together to talk about important issues, everything from politics to religion, general philosophy, sociology, all that fun stuff. We do have Soulspeak Lite as well. That's for our more, I won't use a descriptor here. I'll just say it's for entertainment, media type stuff, social media, streaming. Oh god, I forgot to turn the intros off. I fucked up. Damn you, Nick Omega. Alright, we do. That leads me to my next thing. Guys, there is a lot of stuff toned down for the stream. For instance, sound commands are off. So the redemptions are off. There's no stream loots redemptions. The alerts are even toned down to try to keep conversation going. Without further ado, I'd like to start introducing the panel, and we're going to start on my top left, and that would be Mr. FinDiesel. We are going to begin with... Where did my word... There it is. Okay, so Finn, give us your name, which I already said, what you do in the realm of content creation, just a brief overview, your religious and political affiliations, and any relative accomplishments or employment.
Alright, I'm FinDiesel. I don't remember the list of things already. I'm a content creator. I am a Twitch streamer, and I've been on a brief hiatus, but I intend to get back to it. My religious and political affiliation, I was born Jewish. My parents divorced really when I was very, very young, so my stepmom was Catholic, so I kind of grew up in a very mixed religious household. I went to private Jewish elementary school, but I am kind of agnostic, I think is the safest thing to say. My political affiliation is relatively left-wing in some way or another. I think that my personal beliefs are a little more left-wing than my, what I wish to be implemented beliefs, but I tend to fall pretty far left on the spectrum, I think. And accomplishments, what was the last one? I won the Nobel Peace Prize for being the coolest shark in all of the solar system.
I saw that. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can fact check. Is anyone fact checking this stream?
Nope. I'm not.
Then
so.
yes, then twice.
No facts to politics there.
FinDiesel 2020.
Yeah.
Yes.
Basically, I just meant maybe if you helped out with any campaigns, did anything locally, politically, anything really, organized any sort of groups.
Not really, honestly. I am not hyper politically active. I vote regularly, but I don't necessarily organize. I try to stay informed.
That's what's up. All right, thank you, Finn. Real quick, guys, I would just like to say that there are 2 new commands for this. If you ever want to see who's on the panel, get their links or anything, ! panel, and if you want to see some of the rules for Soulspeak, you could hit S rules. And there will be breaks for chat interaction. I'm going to try to more heavily implement them, as it kind of got messy in previous episodes. So we'll just see how that goes. Hit us with your questions and comments while we're going, and be sure to also save them for that intermission sort of period. Alright, now we have Shiny Shoes. Shiny, who are you, what do you do, and what are some of your political and religious affiliations?
Hello, I'm Shiny Shoes, and in the realm of content creation, variety, I just play a mix of whatever feels good that day, so like stuff like that. Religious, I think that I used to say that I was I was raised Christian, non-denominational Christian. We tried Baptist, all kinds of other things. As I've grown up, I believe I've leaned stronger into atheist, and so much so that I truly believe that a lot of times our belief in God is what keeps us from advancing a lot as a society. So that's on me. Political affiliations, I would say also I lean left. But I I can't say that I'd be 100% for either party. I don't like a lot of what both parties are standing for currently, so left if anything else. I don't have any relative accomplishments. I work for a giant retailer in a specialized division where I teach. So a lot of the people that I work with lean hard right because that's where their money is protected. That's about me.
That's what's up, Johnny. Thank you for that. And real quick, this happened before I got on the show. Kath, thank you very much. 9 months, you beautiful lady. Much appreciated. Deadlift, that brings us to you. Who are you? What do you do? And what are your religious and political affiliations?
All right. Well, first of all, I'm deadlift for chips, just for any correlation here. I deadlift, not on stream anymore because it's a backbreaker, literally. Other than that, I do stream platform and RPG games. Due to some personal business and that, I have not really been streaming as much. No, I do not have a schedule. I don't ask you for a schedule anymore. I do it for fun at this point. But as far as political affiliation, initially I was a Democrat. I no longer have any Democratic or liberal-based affiliation, mainly because politics in general, it's just in my opinion, all semantics, and I'll get into that another time. But as far as religious background, I grew up as a Christian. Later in life, I delved through multiple forms of theology as far as like study of other religions. I don't really have one. Technically, I'm agnostic. I don't really believe in any political affiliation. However, I have a lot that I've delved into as far as opinion likes. So I'm all over the place.
I respect that. Deadlift, thank you very much for that. BigBlueD, you're next. Tell us who you are, what you do, and some of your religious and political affiliations.
Well, BigBlueD, I'm a variety streamer. Pretty much just do anything and everything. My religious affiliation is technically Catholic, though as I've grown older, I would consider myself just more like spiritual, if that makes any sense. I'm not really a believer in the Bible. In terms of like political parties, I'm registered as a Democrat from like way back, but now I'm just like I don't consider myself a Democrat at all. I just vote for whoever I feel like is best regardless of party. So
I like that. Thank you, Sarah. And Sierra, you are next. Who are you? What do you do? What are some of your affiliations?
Hi, I'm Sierra Grove. I'm a full-time Twitch streamer. I stream primarily RPGs, but I mean, I branch out of that a little bit. And I'm a huge mental health advocate on Twitch. It's kind of like my primary thing is about bringing awareness to mental health and mental illnesses and trying to help reduce some of the stigma that surrounds that conversation. And I do that full time. I'm live like every single day around 1-ish, depending on if I can get my ass out of bed, for like 6 to 8 hours every day. Except today because of this. Religiously, I grew up in a pretty open household. Like my parents are Christian, but they're not necessarily like, it was never something that got forced on me, and like they were never like necessarily churchgoers. So I've kind of been left to make my own decisions. And I would say, honestly, depending on the day, because I'm like, I don't really know where I stand. So depending on the day, I am agnostic or atheist or some sort of pagan. And politically, I definitely lean more left than I lean right, but I think I align more with more libertarian ideals than either of like the two major parties.
That's what's up. Thank you, Sierra. Real quick, everybody, my name is Slurpaglurp, and I stream on Twitch. I'm working on bringing YouTube to the fore a bit more. That's it in terms of content creation. I post weird things on Twitter that will make you uncomfortable, and you'll like it. I would say, religiously speaking, as it states in my info below, I am a polytheistic Thelemite, and that's a story for another day. Politically speaking, to keep it brief, I would love to see an anarcho-capitalist society, but I feel like that's an ends where libertarianism or minarchy is the means to get there. I do think we need some pretty profound change, but if that happens overnight, there's going to be a lot of dead and or very more poor people, and we don't need that. We've done enough crazy shit as it is, so let's try to be reasonable in our approach to these drastic changes I feel we need. So that about wraps up the first part, and we just hit 1 minute over the time I had it slated for. Alright, so we're gonna get right on it, guys, and again, ask your questions, give us your commentary in chat, and also keep some stuff on the back burner, maybe in your copy queue for when we have our set break times for chat. But alright, we're gonna get into the first and most important, well, I would say the most important part of this, which is voting in and of itself. There are so many people I've encountered over the past few years, especially with the 2016 elections, that are just like, fuck it, we don't need a vote anymore. It's all bullshit. My vote doesn't matter, or any other given reason. So the first question I have in the voting category, which I'm about to change it to, is does voting matter? Why or why not? We could talk about things like the Electoral College, rigging elections even, our education. Are people educated enough to vote? Because yes, I've heard that argument that they are not before. And just the general feeling of despondency. Does anyone want to tackle that first?
I mean, I think it's absolutely a necessity to vote. I think it's super important because you're basically making a decision who's going to be running the country you live in.
But are you?
In my view, yeah. I mean, because if you're not voting, right, like, then how are they getting in? Like, your votes are what separates, this candidate B from candidate A in terms of who's going to get elected into office, et cetera, et cetera.
I'd agree.
The reason some people have gone into office and gotten voted into the presidency is because there have been times where the populace did not vote for whatever reason, whether they thought that they had no shot of winning, whatever. People were like, oh well, one vote won't matter. Problem is, when those one votes get added up collectively, it becomes a large group of people.
Well,
and if you don't vote, the wrong people can get in.
No, and you're right, but I feel...
Yes. Oh, okay.
What's happening? Who's talking?
If Finn's I was gonna say Finn, he's passing it along to Sierra. You're free to go if you'd like.
Okay, I feel like yes, it is important to vote, but also, we did vote. Again, look at the 2016 election. We did vote, and the wrong people still got in office. The Electoral College basically said, I see that you voted. I don't give a shit. And, the Electoral College is what made that call, ultimately. I think voting is important, but I think it's really tricky right now. And especially, the way that if you really look at the number of people in certain areas and how many electoral votes they get and things like that, I just don't think it's fair. I don't think it's divided up properly. And this is only, I want to say, the second or third time in American history that someone has won the popular vote but not won the presidency. And in this case, not that Hillary Clinton's great, I'm not necessarily advocating for Hillary Clinton, I'm just saying that she won by I want to say it was something crazy. It was some absurd number. This was the largest margin ever that someone has won the popular vote and then not gotten the presidency.
I'm gonna check it.
It was I was gonna say, I remember, I knew at the time.
There was also an obscene stat that I remember though, where it was 60% of Americans didn't vote.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Which was
didn't vote at all?
Did not vote at all for anybody.
Okay.
And that's a good year for elections, for real.
Yeah. And like you're saying, like that. So it's happened 5 times that the person got elected that lost the
Popular.
vote, which is wild because the people in the electoral college, they should literally just be passing on what we vote. They should have no other job but that. The fact that they even have the ability to go beyond what we are voting for is a breakdown in the system.
Yeah, their opinions shouldn't matter at that point.
But
Yeah.
I do want to.
Oh, go. No, Finn, you're good. Go.
I want to zoom out a little bit and say that at the most extreme, you can prove, like, logically that voting matters, because in every case where voting seems unfair, if you didn't vote, it would be worse, right?
Yeah.
So voting definitely has power, because in all of these systems that are designed to suppress votes, it's because voting has so much power.
Yeah.
So in every situation that it's being, and like there are many things that restrict the vote, like across the board, but even so, I think voting is super important, because the absence of voting just makes all of these things that are bad worse.
I would be interested to see what the statistics are for like how many Americans voted or didn't vote in the elections following the years that the popular vote didn't matter. I'm sure that those like following year elections had like awful I'm trying to think, like, whatever the last one was before this, I bet the next 4 years there was probably a lot of voting apathy and a lot of people who were like, well, why should I vote? I voted for this person, and so did the rest of the country, but they didn't get it, so why should I even vote?
Yeah.
I'm sure that that's like a widespread issue after.
And I mean, I agree with Finn, though, like, just because, so the person you didn't win didn't get in, I don't feel like that's something that you say, hey, I'm not going to vote anymore because of that.
Yeah.
The votes, so we have the electoral college, that being a part of the system is a whole different thing, but the votes do matter, and they are going to count out. And the thought process that, hey, you know, I don't like either of these candidates, so if I don't vote for one of them, I'm wasting my vote, or I'm just not going to vote because, you know, I'm not necessarily a fan of one of those. The fact that we aren't making decisions on things, or the people that are in there are not necessarily people that you were looking to vote for, where are we missing the ball in that? Like, what's going, why is that happening to a point that I'm like, hey, you know, I'm not going to vote anymore because this person didn't get in, but I'm okay with these 2 people getting it, even though they are for me in no way whatsoever. They don't understand anything I'm about.
And I would like to go on the record and say I am for voting. Like, I definitely am all about voting. I think that everyone should vote. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate and explaining sort of, because I see why people feel that apathy and why people feel that there's no reason to vote. Like, because right after the election, I did feel that. Like, now as we get closer to the election, I'm like, no, it's super important to vote. I want Trump out of office super, super badly, and I'm like, no, we have to work for that. We need to get that to happen. So I'm definitely pro-voting. I just kind of like, I understand where that comes from. But Shiny, you said one thing about like when people talk about either like, oh, I'm just not gonna vote, or saying like, oh, if I don't vote or if I throw my vote away. Actually, I'm gonna save that. Never mind. I'm gonna save that thought. That's a different thought.
I would like to throw in 2 things here. Firstly, I'd like to just propose the idea of voting being a peaceful means of everything, of protest, of making your voice heard, of just instilling change. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the saying, but if nothing changes, nothing changes. So what's our alternative to voting? Like, domestic warfare? Like, what is the harm in just voting just in case it does matter? I'm not convinced personally one way or the other that voting is definitely 100% like on the up and up. I think there has been some very shady stuff that's been occurring over the past few elections even. But at the same time, I don't have all the facts, and if voting can somehow bring our country together, or at least act as a sort of decisive tool to do so, it's worth a shot. It's worth 5 minutes, well, maybe more than 5 minutes, but it's worth the time out of your day to try. In the event you don't feel you have a candidate to vote for, I get it, and I am not a proponent of voting for the lesser of two evils. I say fuck that, but we'll dig into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But in most cases, I think people can find candidates that somewhat resonate with them. I forget what the other thing was. Deadlift, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, actually, I can't really explain it in detail anymore because I've said it probably a million times. But the whole voting process, I'm not even gonna lie. Like when Donald Trump was elected, I kind of cried because I was
I
like,
too.
"This shit is." I thought it was a
I was
fucking
scared.
joke. I thought it was a joke for a second. So I got up the next morning and I was like, "Okay, this shit is just a bull. This is garbage." The whole voting process in general. I was somebody that voted twice, so that's why I'm just like, I don't just vote for my president. I vote for my local congressman.
Yeah.
There's someone that's being voted in as the next judge, councilman, in the Senate. Anytime there's a new election, I'm voting in it, which is why like that waned my energy as far as like pushing for whoever is going to be the next governor or the next judge in your area. These things are important to be looked into more than your president. But even in the smaller scales, that's also being manipulated too in other ways. So it's hard for me to say. Like I believe voting does matter to some degree, but I feel like it matters more when you're involved more in your community, you're involved more in contacting your local politicians on a consistent basis, and not just the actual presidency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Well,
Contacting your local people does not always work, for the record. I dated a guy for 2 years who was aide to one of our local government. It was like one of our local senators, and then he ended up becoming the aide to the Speaker of the House. And the amount of times that I would hear about phone calls that he got or emails that he got that he just didn't even forward to the guy. You know what I mean? Like he's in his own little office outside the speaker's office. He sees the email and like sends his generic reply or like answers the phone and is like, "Yeah, I'll let him know," and then never did. And like that's common practice. Like you're speaking to the aides, and it's really like a coin toss if they're ever even going to like push that forward.
I'm gonna interject and say I'm gonna tell you from personal experience that you're right, and in the same sense you're wrong, only because it takes a really pissed off person to get changes going on. We're talking like the generic situation, like have a child, there's a PTA meeting, your son was beaten by, let's say, another boy or something. How do you get things done? You consistently badger, every single person within the school district until they get sick and tired of you constantly talking to you, constantly calling, constantly sending emails. Unfortunately, that takes months, and it takes knowing a couple of people here and there, getting the word out. But it's possible.
It is possible.
That's a point.
That's the sad part of that. You gotta put in a lot
It
of
is
effort.
possible. It's just there's no guarantee that your senator is gonna
another
hear
thing.
that's what I'm saying.
I hear both of you there. I think another important thing to consider, though, is yes, while I agree, as I think Devin stated in the chat, as Deadlift was saying here, and as Sierra commented on, the local stuff is all important, as is state stuff under the federal umbrella. Unfortunately, that federal umbrella is getting bigger every day. Some guy in Washington, or a gaggle of guys in Washington, are making more and more decisions for people at the state and local level, and it's not good. That, I guess, is a debate in and of itself. So let's move on. Who else? Shiny, were you gonna say something?
So like we talk about local election and everything, and one thing that I'm real big into is kind of looking into why certain areas point this. So I live in middle of the country. We're very yeehaw state, leans red. Like I grew up with people that very, very, very Republican. So, I like to look into that political stuff and kind of think, what's going on here? Why are districts voting like this? Because I know there are people that live by me, and we're like, I have a very large Democratic community right where I live specifically. But when they come down, you look at the district, the way that our district was folded and kind of the way it came about, we went red. And you're looking into it, and So the way that they determine how your district's vote's going to go is they structure your district, and your district's lines can be structured in a way so even if your community is majority Democratic, they can add enough Republican communities into that so that your majority vote will go towards a Republican vote. So there's weird graphs on it online, but if you go online, you look at how are districts split up by votes, it makes no sense where they draw the lines. It literally makes no sense.
Cracking.
Yeah, gerrymandering, or the other way to think about it makes no sense. But if you think of it as a political candidate, hey, I can guarantee this vote because I know the people from this district I'm going to get enough votes to cancel out the other votes in the district across for us. That's another breakdown there that we need to probably look at. But I'm not saying it's been happening forever, so I'm not saying something's going to go down. But that could be another reason why people are frustrated, because you'll have a community like this, and then we'll get and see our election results, and you're like, who, what? That doesn't seem like what we voted for at all, but that's just how it is. So,
well, and that also plays into like the voting. So voting is important, I think.
Oh yeah.
But like we have to look at it within the context, right? Like, because we have a system in which we don't have a direct democracy, right? We have representative democracy. So in representative democracy, voting is still important, even though it is less like statistically effective than a direct democracy. So like voting is important equally in both of them, but your voting is maybe less effective in a representative democracy. So if the question is voting important, it's like, what is the context, and like, does a restriction on voting somehow make it less important to vote? Sounds like the question. And I don't think the answer is yes. I think no matter how much the voting is restricted, it's not, the impact is not that the voting is less important, it's that our system has become worse because it is trying to suppress something that is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that.
Yep. And I mean, you still got to get out there. I mean, you have to be a part of this, but it's really, I think with the way that our system works, a lot of times when people go out to vote, so I mean, I remember 4 years ago standing in line, and there's gajillion people, and they're all around me, and you know, I'm talking to people around me and everything. I'm like, hey, who are you voting for? And they can tell me, you know, either they were voting for Hillary or Trump, either way. But then I was more interested beyond that. Who are you voting for representative? And they said, oh, I don't know. So in the way that our democracy works, I think those other individuals you vote for are just as important as the main one that you're going to put in, the president. Because again, a lot of the bills and stuff that are going to get pushed through, you have to have somebody there that's going to represent you in a right way. If you don't know who you're voting for in that,
But now we're talking
Guys,
about responsibility to stay
wait
educated.
1 second.
Yeah.
I got to do my hosting duties here. We have about 20 minutes left. I would like to jump into the second part of this. I'm going to kind of merge them together here. So I'd like to discuss the duopoly, the Democratic and Republican dominance, and other options that we might have. And I'd like to merge that with the idea of voting for parties versus voting for people. And I will speak on that first. One of the stupidest fucking things I've ever heard in my life, which I see on Twitter all the time, is vote Democrat no matter what. Fuck that. I hate, oh my god. I'm not even sorry. All right, I'm gonna get roasted for it probably, but I don't care if it's Republican. I don't even care if it's Libertarian. Don't vote any fucking party no matter what. That makes no sense. You know nothing about the person who's gonna get that position. The Democratic Party used to be like the popularly believed to be, and some legislative backing to it, racist party. The Republican Party used to be fiscally conservative. No more. What I'm getting at here is values of parties flip on their heads every single day. We can't look at parties and just know what a candidate's going to bring to the table. Look at the Democratic primaries now. You have like 15 people. They're all, in my opinion, spewing bullshit, but they're slightly different brands of bullshit. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, no, I don't like Trump, but no, I'm not just going to vote Democrat no matter what. That's ignorant, that is self-defeating, that kills the whole spirit of voting and individuality. So let's touch on that a little bit and the idea of the duopoly. Maybe give some hope for third-party options, which I definitely hope to see more of in this coming election. Blue, let's hear from you first, sir.
I knew you were gonna go right to me because we've had these cuts so often. My stance has always been the biggest problem in this country is the Democrat-Republican pissing match and the dominance and the refusal of the people to go outside of those parties because they think it's a wasted vote. Sorry, but if you get to a certain percentage of votes with the, like an independent person or whatever, it becomes a party. It becomes, so like, do your part. Like the fact that people still think like the only two things that matter are Democrat and Republican and that's it absolutely blows my mind. We're supposed to have intelligence. We're supposed to be the most advanced species out there in terms of our ability to think and reason. And yet when it comes to politics, we cease to use our brains. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, fine. If there's a great Democrat option, I'll vote for him or her. And if it's like a Republican, I'll vote for them. But this whole mindset of it's one or the other or nothing is ridiculous. I have friends, right, that literally told me in the 2016 election, I said, who are you voting for? I don't like either of them, but I'm not worried about Trump getting in. He's not getting in. I don't have to vote to like keep him out. Okay. And I said, and this is what I said, you underestimate the stupidity of the American people. And sure enough, I was right. Now, when it comes to like the whole I don't like either option thing, I don't believe in that either, because like you don't have to like the option A or B. There's option C, D, E, F, all the way through Z. Look outside the box. Please put some effort into like helping this country fix itself. It starts with us, but people seem to not want to put in any effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I was about to piggyback off of Shiny earlier, and then I like held my tongue and was like, oh wait, we're not there yet. Because I definitely like when people say like, oh, well, wasted vote or whatever, and like it's not a wasted vote, because even if it seems incredibly unlikely that that third party is going to get into office, if they get a certain amount of votes, that still makes a difference. I know that if there's a certain percentage, and I can't remember what it is, but if they get a certain percentage of votes in that third party, then they get an amount of like a lot of additional financing that goes to their party, and they get a lot of government support to then grow their party and do better next time. In the last election, I didn't like Trump and I didn't like Hillary. I voted Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson was on the ballot in all 50 states and didn't get hardly any screen time. Like he was in a couple of like interviews where he did the Aleppo thing, and I mean Slurp and I kind of had a conversation about the Aleppo situation. Because everyone was mad about the Aleppo thing, and that was a reason that he was not fit for president. But after the hurricane in Puerto Rico, Trump said that he spoke with the president of Puerto Rico, which is him, which is definitely not like an improvement on Gary Johnson not knowing where Aleppo is. But I voted for Gary Johnson, and he didn't quite get the threshold to get the extra earnings that he needed to. And I think there's a lot of people who wanted to vote Johnson and didn't do it because they thought they were throwing their vote away. And then they could have made that difference. But he did get so much attention and so much like people paying attention to him and backlash and whatever, like both for good and bad, that he did get people talking. And I know that I heard shortly after shortly after the election, there was talk of them discussing allowing third parties into the like major debates. And I think when Trump and Hillary were up there screaming at each other, like Gary Johnson's on the ballot in all 50 states, he should have been there. I think that every voting American should have been educated about this person that was going to be on the ballot everywhere in the country. Like, there's no reason for that not to be a thing. And like, so the media only helps us to suppress a third party and keep it as this Republican Democrat duopoly.
Sierra, there was Lay's special flavor potato chips to vote between. You can't expect the people to like do something important like voting for a good candidate in the presidency when there's ketchup or waffles and syrup on the line.
Loaded baked potato.
Oh, that
flavors.
and a bag of chips.
That was very important.
All right, guys,
I
let's.
voted Gary also, by the way.
You got. I love you guys. Finn, you have your finger up. Oh, Shiny, Finn, rock
no,
paper
he's good.
scissors,
Go,
death
Finn.
match right
Let me
now.
kind of interject real quick.
They're all
That
three
really
going at
reminds me of
once.
that episode. Of,
Chad, can
Really
you vote
reminds me
for
of
who
that
goes?
All three. All right, deadlift. How quick is your thing? Give me it in seconds.
No, you're gonna go ahead. Deadlift you.
I said no. It just reminds me of that episode of South Park voting between like actual shit and a douche, and they're like,
Yes.
which one's better? Which one do you have to vote for is better? And you're just like, well, I think I'm gonna have to
Exactly.
vote anyway.
Exactly.
The entire episode is pretty much what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
All
That
right,
was a great
Finn or Shiny? Shiny
Finn,
Diesel.
go ahead. You got it.
All right, so in defense of the system, we are in slightly different times than we're used to. So, like, not all that long ago, these two parties were much more diverse across the spectrum, and you just kind of leaned into one or the other. So there were very moderates in both parties, all the way to very extremists in both parties. And so the primary process was more of a dwindling down of which type of each Democrat and Republican we were looking for. So you would have more libertarian candidates, and you would have more socially conservative or fiscally conservative or both, and you would have the Dixiecrats, who were very conservative Democrats who lived in the South, who and like this kind of fell apart with the internet, where things became much less segmented and became more this national thing where all Democrats are one thing. That's a very, very, very new thing, and we're working in a very old system, right? So like there's this tweet I really like that's something like it's Ben Franklin saying there should always be 2 senators per state, and it's saying someone saying like, but what if there are 80 million people in California? And he's like, how many people in what? Because like our system was just not designed to expand this far, and we do this with a number of systems where we've been doing it for so long that we kind of lose the reasons they were put into place in the first place and just kind of follow the motions of what's already in. And so we only look at things in a very narrow modern frame, and we lose some historical context that would allow us to say like there was a time when Democrats and Republicans as a two-party system did present a very wide variety of selection that the primary process then narrowed down to which of those the majority of the country wanted to have this final fight between the two. So like it worked better.
Why do you feel
in
it
a
matters
time.
now?
What do you mean? What matters? The
Like-
electoral college, or like the two-party system?
Like
Because
having. Oh, okay.
Because I don't think that we should put bad bandages on like very I don't think we should treat the symptoms instead of like find a cure. So like in some ways looking at what's wrong with the two-party system now and trying to like break a piece off and say we need bigger third parties, I think is like treating the symptoms and not looking for a cure, because there was a time when this system did provide us with options, and I don't think that it is impossible to still have options within the system as it exists.
Wait, so are you proposing it would be better to have the two main parties sort of semi-splinter in their own parties as opposed to getting more parties involved?
Yeah, because I am very, very familiar with a multi-party system that I think is garbage, and I think that our two-party system functions, especially historically, significantly better than I've ever seen the multi-party system function.
Can you tell us which one you're referring to?
Israel.
How many parties do they have?
A lot.
Oh.
It changes all the time. And like the largest party is like 28%. So you have to like make dirty compromises all the time in not good ways to get anything passed. And because it is so segmented, you like not only do you not get the choice you really wanted, you have to make really nasty sacrifices to get anything close to what you wanted in the first place, because it's all over the place. Fair enough. I really I don't mind the two-party system because within the two parties can exist a very wide range of ideology that only gets narrowed down. Like the primary system is, the point of the primary system is to take us from 14 to 2, right? Is to take us from our wide field of options down to like who really can win this thing, right? So even if we were segmented into more parties, I don't think at this stage we would want more than 2 options. Even if it was eliminating Democrats and only voting for, libertarians and Republicans, I think at the end, we only really want 2, because otherwise you're really like not splitting, you're not getting what you really want because the vote is so segmented. So like, I really like, what's the name of it? The voting where you ranked choice, where you get your first choice and then your second choice, and if your first choice doesn't get enough, they take them out of the thing, and all your vote goes to the next choice. So you can really put your third party choice first, and if they get knocked out, your vote doesn't just randomly go to someone; it goes to where you intended for it to go.
Interesting.
I'm gonna have to ponder that. But I will say this before passing it along to someone else. That seems kind of more like a semantics game, because then you still have different candidates with different ideologies. They're just under 2 umbrellas as opposed to like 20. But I do also get the notion that each party as a whole will have like unified interests, and if there's a bunch of parties, that can get messy. So I kind of
the founders didn't even want parties.
Yes, that is true also.
Yeah.
All right, who would like to go next?
I was just gonna say real quick, the problem with the two-party thing is, it's not that the two-party system is bad, it's that the two parties are focusing more on trashing each other than like building the country up.
Or solving problems.
Yeah, like if they could like find a way to coexist, two-party system would be a lot better.
Personally, my biggest issue with the two-party system as it stands right now is I don't feel like either party is focusing on anything that they should be. And again, this might be just like the libertarian in me coming out, but like I think that they're also hyper-focused on legalizing marijuana and gay marriage and abortion and all these things that like they shouldn't even be the government's fucking business. Like they need to worry about foreign policy.
Yes.
They need to worry about like security. There is a few key things that our like overall government needs to worry about. And I don't even know where most of the candidates stand on those things, because we're also hyper-focused on all of these little social things that, like,
we're going to get to that. That's a big one. That's coming up after the chat break.
But that's just kind of, like, my biggest thing is I don't think either party is really talking about anything that matters. So, like, the Libertarian Party is one that I think talks more about things that the government should actually be dealing with. And so that's why I want to branch out of just these two parties.
I loves it. Shiny?
So... just quick things about it. I did find out that Hillary did win. It was about 3 million more votes.
I knew it was
Trump
a couple million.
It was 3 million. I voted Jill Stein in the election. Yeah. I looked through all of them. I decided that one was good for me. I liked it. And then last one. So my biggest problem with like a two-party system. Biggest thing with two-party system is, if you look at what we would put forth as a Democratic candidate, what, outside of maybe one, what Democratic candidate would we put forward that you couldn't just Scooby-Doo pull the mask off and say, look, it's a Republican?
Really?
I'm mad there was a meme that actually said the same thing you just said.
You don't think that? Like, so maybe Bernie, maybe because he's like your hard left. But yeah, do you think like Biden? Do you not see him as a Republican?
Biden's certainly an extremely moderate candidate who is very close to the middle on the spectrum.
That's what I wanted to mention before too. I forgot. The Democratic Party has changed. Now they're like left to extreme left. It doesn't. Yeah. And even Republicans are like a little right of center to kind of left. Like
no, I think that's.
They're not that different.
It's really hard to see the like the biggest like a big split between the two parties. Which, if you are going to go with that two system, it's really hard to like lock down one and say, you know, this person has most of my ideals, but a lot of times they're intermingling, and you look at not just what they're saying now, but what these individuals have said throughout their entire career. It's hard to say, like, okay, if you said this at one time, you're not going to do that again. You're not going to say that again. That's hard for me to believe because, I mean, I know people have the ability to change, but historically, I don't.
They can, but they don't.
Though it's Hillary Clinton syndrome. You'll just say whatever you need to get elected. And, Deadlift or Blue, would you like to add anything? We got about 5 minutes left.
You got something, Blue? Okay. Pretty much everybody kind of put in all the main points. I don't really have much else to add outside of like specific, situations that kind of occurred in the last couple of years. And one of the main things is like every single candidate that's either being overly progressive or, overly conservative, like the main gripe is focused on not actual amendments, which I can't remember which one specifically right now. There's amendments that need to be changed. There's old laws that need to be not only like ratified, vetoed on. There's too much focus on modern gripe and like small laws that people are asking for. And you pass the big laws, like what was it a couple of years ago when gay marriage was legalized, and under the table, there was a lot of funny executive laws that were passed temporarily. As well as like every single time you get a big law that's passed, just pay attention. It's kind of what I'm getting at. Like a lot of these laws that are pertaining to our social interests, but not underlining change with society, especially like the U.S.
To be fair, there are a lot of bills that have passed the House that have been sitting in the Senate. The Senate is out of the 400 bills passed the House in 2019, the Senate passed 70 of them, and 10 of those were changing the names of federal post offices. The Senate is the bottleneck for passing meaningful legislation right now. Like, demonstrably. That's not my opinion. That's where the capital is.
Fair enough. Blue?
I'm just gonna say, like, in terms of what Shiny said about, is there any Democratic members that aren't basically Republicans? The two that I'm actually like torn between, I think, are actually very non-Republican.
Which is interesting.
Drop some names.
Yeah, you could say it. Like,
well, no, I think Andrew Yang is one, a good one, and like I don't know how to pronounce
He's a
his
dick.
last name.
He's a dick.
But I'm gonna say
the dick.
Buttigieg.
Buttigieg.
If you don't vote
Buttigieg, something like that.
All right.
Booty.
Finn, can you give us your point in 1 minute? That's
about what?
About what you were just gonna say before.
No, it's fine. I'll just skip it.
Okay, then I'll use this time to tell you guys why Andrew Yang is a dick.
Please do.
He said 2 times on Twitter, I'm just trying to give people free money. So I said, sir, where do you want me to send my PayPal information? He didn't respond to me one time. Not a single time out of those 2 times. You're really trying to give me free money, Wall? Because I'm right here. Take my info. Jesus.
He actually gave it away to someone who who wrote what they needed it most for. He picked one and sent them $15,000.
What? He didn't put that in his tweet. I still like Mr. Beast more, alright? I said it. Mr. Beast 2020. Guys, we are gonna now take a break for chat. If any of my panelists or anyone in chat needs to, like, use the bathroom, get a drink, or if you want to help me address chat here, that would be awesome too. If you have any questions or comments, this is the time to ask them. Well, I've allotted 15 minutes for it, so light it up.
I may need help reading chat because I can only see like half of the chat.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Did any of you see anything that struck your eyes when we were talking? So I'm seeing
Like I said, the most active chatter I like can't see, so I need help.
So I'll start to make my point until someone has a question.
Okay.
But I think it's interesting that there were kind of opposite things being said. One, that everyone is either like that everyone's a closet Republican, which means they're far right, and then that they're only extreme left. So like that covers the whole spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So between those two arguments, we're saying both the Democrats are way too conservative and that the Democrats are far too liberal.
Wait, say that first part again.
Between the two arguments that were made, one said that the Democrats are Republicans in disguise, which means that they're far too right wing, and then the other said that they are Deadlift said that they're too extreme left wing right now, and that they're fighting for. And it was common to say that they were fighting for far too left wing social.
I said that also. But
so-
I think the way you're looking at it might be a bit different because how I took that was kind of like they both kind of meet in. I don't want to say the middle because they're both pretty like notably left in my opinion. When I think like anything big government, that's an automatic tilt to the left for me. Social issues, they do matter, but I mean...
But if you're saying they're extremely left, then Blue's saying that they're Republicans in disguise, which means they're far
that
right.
was me.
Shiny.
Right? Or Shiny.
That was me, yeah.
Shiny.
Which means they're right on the right end.
So,
right?
just me on it, like, when you look at the candidates that they put forward, like, the ones that are getting airtime for the Democratic Party, I mean, you have your Bernie, and then a few others like that, but the biggest, and I guess even through all this nonsense going on right now in the White House, like, if you're thinking of what they felt is their biggest threat to presidency would have been Biden, I'm guessing, is what they assumed, and a lot of individuals like that. I feel Biden can run. He's running in the Democratic Party, but if there was no primary that was in the Republican Party, would it be hard for you to see him in the Republican Party?
Bernie?
Ask that again.
No,
Biden.
Biden, okay. No, not at all for me.
Like, I could, to me, I see him as, I mean, he's running Democratic, but what is he so hard stanced on that is going to put him?
I'm gonna just cut the bullshit on that. Biden has the black vote, and that's why the.
No, you got cut out. We heard black vote, and then you cut out.
You cut out.
No, I said Biden has the black vote. That's why. Nobody cares about any position he's really on. If he's associated with Obama, and that's basically the big thing. Like, oh my God, he knows what he's talking about, and I don't even want to go into detail about it because he's horrible.
Joe, look, I'm gonna appease to everyone here. Joe Biden grabbed 18,000 girls by the head and kissed them and whispered in their ear. I saw it. Wait, on the lips? I didn't see that. Kayla says if you look at both sides of political parties, I guess they're so similar but different on something, but the thing that matters the most, they are two. Kayla, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're saying here. Are you saying that they're not different in places that matter? Like they're only different on superficial issues? And we have Raven here who says, I had a mini political talk in a past stream, and my thing is, in so many political things being debated, there are only black and white solutions per the parties, and Republicans take one side and Democrats take the other. A lot of time there's a gray area, and there are candidates that sit in those gray areas but will never have a chance because they won't have the backing of either juggernaut parties, which is pretty bull. I'm glad Raven said that, and this ties into what Finn was arguing for, I think. So here's the thing, and I wanted to mention this before. I was talking, I believe, in Sierra's Discord about it. We're gonna get to polarization. I'll touch on it superficially here for this. The polarization doesn't reside so much in the Democrat and Republican dynamic. I believe that it's more of a state versus statelessness dynamic. Do we want a huge state, or do we want less of a state? And it seems like, Finn, you would contend that there are stark enough differences between the Democratic and Republican parties, largely?
Currently modern, like
right now.
Yes, I think there are pretty stark differences between the two parties.
And it seems like that's what Raven is contending also. My thing is that, at least from a libertarian perspective, the thinking falls both in the gray area and on the extremes. Like, most libertarian philosophies or policy resolutions I could think of tend to merge the better ideas that Democrats and Republicans might have, but some of it does end up on that black and white ends of the spectrum. Like, for instance, where the Democrats and Republicans, I think as Kayla was saying, they don't disagree on shit that matters. And we're going to get into foreign policy a little bit down the road on this show. But they both perpetuate war. Obama, Trump, Clinton, Bush, they both say they're going to end war, but they send more troops out to foreign lands. None of them end the drug war. None of them do anything to really shrink government. We do have Trump cutting some, like, regulations and stuff, but ultimately it seems like the things he has done has just sort of been redirecting funds to help him and his goons, and ultimately only making government bigger anyway, just more so to benefit him and his people. So Raven and everyone, me rambling, what I'm contending here is that Democrats and Republicans are not black and white. There are some issues they do have presentable differences on, but at the end of the day, they are both on the side of statism, and a bloated one at that. So we can't find solutions in that when government is, in my opinion, I know some of y'all disagree, is the problem. So that's my point.
I would argue that within the parties, that the Democratic Party has a much broader ideological spectrum than the Republican Party right now. So to say that one party versus the other, especially when we were talking about, like, polarity, I think that the Republican Party is very unilateral right now, and the Democratic Party spreads out a lot more.
You don't have to, but can you provide an example there? Like,
Sure,
even of just two candidates or people?
Sure, just between Biden and Sanders, you've got very, very different...
That's fair. That's fair. Sanders is... And Sanders is getting a lot of, I think, other politicians to start swaying even more left, too, in terms of socialist policy. So you do have a point.
So I think even within... but then if you look at the Republican Party, you see, like unanimity on everything, right? They are in line. No matter what it is, they are in line right now.
Devin says that, wouldn't that gray area be bipartisan at this point? See, I would say no, because there's too many similarities between the Republicans and Democrats to have a real gray area. It's all blue and red, purple. It's all purple area. It just kind of melds together for me. Finn, I know you wouldn't agree with that, but do you kind of agree with that? A little bit?
agree with what specifically?
Like,
sum up your point.
The idea that both the Democratic and Republican parties are seeking to expand the influence and role of government in the lives of individuals on a daily basis. Their policies are geared towards it.
You think both sides?
Yeah.
I would say the conservative end of both parties, especially Republicans, want smaller government right now, right? It's so hard for me to say, because my issue right now with the Republican Party is that right now what it means to be a Republican is not what it meant in very recent history. So right now it's a party of identity and not a party of ideology.
We're gonna get to that.
Very, very, very hard to say what it is their policies are pushing towards, because they're not only are they not passing bills, they're also like, I don't know if they're making big government or small government, because at any given moment, I would think this is something a Republican would care about, but as long as it's in line with the president, it doesn't matter right now. And so I really don't know what's going on in the Republican Party, because I appreciate conservatism, and I think that ideologically there are really interesting conversations to be had. And right now, I think it's hard to have an ideological conversation with a Republican, because what they are supporting is not reflective of what their party has historically represented.
I mean, Finn, I respect where you're coming from, but let me remind all of you, this is the 2020 election. This isn't what should be, this isn't what we'd like it to be, or what we've seen in the past. This is the huge shitstorm that is going on right now. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I agree with you in principle, Finn. I would like to read, Carolina said, honestly, I feel that way about Democrats in general. They just expect black people to give them a vote and not really promise us shit. Thoughts on that, anybody? Shiny?
Well, I don't remember who said it. I want to say it was Shaq, and it was really, or it might have been Charles Barkley, but he said, poor people have been voting Democrat forever, and guess what? We're still poor. So to say that you're just going to vote one way because of race or ethnicity, like, so I'm Hispanic. A lot of my friends know that and everything. And I remember when the 2016 election went down, I was sitting in my basement and I was on in party chat or Discord with two other individuals. And there are two people who live next to me, and they were like cheering and hooting and hollering because, again, this is where I live. I live in Yeehaw country. So they asked me, they're like, well, what do you think about it? And I was like, well, honestly, that scares me. And they're like, why would that scare you? And they started, like, you know, calling me an idiot and things like that. And I was like, well, when someone runs their election campaign on slogans such as, you know, make America great again, let's get the Mexicans on the other side of the wall, when people like that say things like that, that is the kind of things that can scare me. And no, not so much, but that may have not have been what he's saying. But a lot of times I can tell you that after the election happened, I can't even count the amount of people that I've considered friends, the amount of people I've known my entire life have asked me, when are you going on the other side of the wall? Stuff like that. So it's maybe it isn't, those people might not be racist, but when that is what comes down and that is what we've elected and put into office, you can't say that there weren't some kind of racial undertones into what we were doing, just like with the previous election.
Shiny, you're onto some really good shit here, but we do have that topic sort of slated for one of the next three. Also, we are almost done with chat intermission time, so I do want to read some more of these. Thank you again for that. One for Mrs. E says, that's the problem with the Republican Party, in my opinion. They refuse to acknowledge the past, which keeps them from getting those votes. That's interesting. What kind of onus would you say is on the Republican Party in terms of acknowledging the past? In what sense? Devin says, war is cancer, cancer is war. They're entirely too profitable to get rid of war and cancer, despite the positive impact it should have on society. And that is the result of a society devoid of innovation and devoid of competition, which inspires such innovation, and why we need a free market to come up with better and more efficient, pleasant means of making money. You keep your mouth shut, Finn. You don't say nothing. You let me talk about that. We might get to that a little bit. I shouldn't have opened that can of worms. It's not fair to you guys, but I gotta stifle it right now. I know not everyone agrees with that. War, I think we could all at least agree that human life tends to be more precious than money and profit, especially when that profit is going into the hands of a few greedy, evil, and/or inefficient people who don't really give enough of a damn to study their shit.
I don't know, like, it's hard to agree with that. If you look at anything, like, us here can agree with it, but the people in power, money is way more important than my life is.
That's fair. That is true.
Yeah, that's valid.
Boo says, two heads of the same dragon. You don't have freedoms. You have no rights. You have the illusion of freedom. They're just a face for the public. The real ones in power you've never even heard of. None of us have. They hide behind a curtain of a false system that doesn't work to keep the masses distracted. Too occupied.
Music.
Look, I come, for real though, I come from a pretty steep conspiracy background. I just feel like at this stage in the game, there's no way I could get the right knowledge. We get bombarded with so much information.
Yeah.
And now that my man's Alex Jones ain't on YouTube anymore, I can't keep track of the gay frogs. I don't know what they're gonna do.
Police State 4, the Bilderberg Group runs everything.
Bilderberg Group's fucking serious, dude. That's not even conspiracy. That's the world's most powerful businessmen and politicians meeting in private. Like, whether or not they're coming up with some nefarious shit or not, I won't speculate that far, but it is a fact that those meetings do occur.
It's getting deep.
Wait, hold up. Let me ask you all this. Everyone in chat, everyone here, you guys don't think it's like there's the potential for some bad shit to go down in a group of 130 of the most powerful people in the world meeting up in private?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
All right.
There's a bunch
But is
of...
it happening?
There's a bunch of
No,
people
it is happening. It's documented. It does happen. This isn't stop rolling your eyes. This isn't me like making it up. It's not.
That kind of conspiracy stuff. I don't.
It's not a hold on.
Yeah,
Let me.
It's like an actual thing that's happening.
Yes, Blue. This is not a conspiracy. This is a well-documented event.
documented thing.
People admit to going to them.
They're running things from behind the curtain.
Oh no, they're not. They're running it right in our faces because they own like half of the world. If you put all these politicians and businessmen together.
Like, they are meeting in private. It's just a matter of, like, we don't know what they're doing in private.
Yes.
So, like, do we not acknowledge that that could be harmful and that they could be doing fucked up shit when you just put a bunch of the most powerful people in the world or in the country or whatever who, like, they have no consequences because who the hell's going to hold them to anything?
Yeah.
They're the ones that everybody else has to be held to. Like, who's going to hold them accountable? They can do anything they want. So they could be. Are they or aren't they? Who knows? But it's a possibility. It's something that's like a scary possibility.
But do the people have the right to meet in private? Yeah, I guess. Like, Deadlift.
Again, who's gonna stop them? Like,
that's fair too. Deadlift. Did you have something to add to that?
I mean, it's not really a conspiracy theory. It's just the way you worded it. Money in politics. So all the rich people pretty much bring all these politicians around, especially the presidential election. They go on yachts. They go on big lavish dinners.
water real fast.
They're big meetings, and it's like not necessarily the Koch brothers, but everybody kind of goes hand in hand. Like, okay, who's going to give me the best offer? Who's going to give us the bills and policy that we need in place to keep our companies in check? So it's happening in a political sense, just not in the way you're talking. I know what you're saying, though. I'm an Illuminati guy, too.
This ain't... See, Illuminati would be taking it a step further with, like, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations getting in on it, the lizard people. The Queen of England, as we all know, who is a
I
lizard.
just came back on lizard people.
That's all right. We're getting ahead of ourselves here, but I'm saying there's a difference between the Illuminati and shit like the Bilderberg Group, which is real. We just there, as far as we all know, it's neutral or even positive. I don't fucking know. Finn, you're making faces there. What do you want to say?
Nothing. I was yawning, but trying not to yawn widely. So
Oh.
So you just like tensed up your whole face, squished it up as little as you could.
Okay. Nick says, if that many powerful people meeting in one place, a targeted strike is always a possibility. Well, that's daily, man. I mean, look at the Pentagon. That's a thing. They meet without C-SPAN all the time. Well, C-SPAN, I think, only reaches the U.S. Devin says, anytime the most powerful people in the world meet, it is not in the best interest of the common man. Powerful people try to protect the values they deem important, and it generally doesn't align with the common man. I'm inclined to agree with that. I would like to think there are some, like, rich, influential, benevolent people. I like being optimistic.
They exist.
They do exist. All right, that's all I needed to hear. If Finn says it, it's fucking true. I live a better life thinking in that context. Okay, we are gonna move on now, and this is gonna be the fun part. Let's change the scene. We're gonna start with political correctness and socio-political polarization. Who wants to start on that
What did I say
can
about
of
using big
dildos?
words?
Oh, okay.
Like
So not only political correctness, but like identity politics as well. So so identity politics basically being like using your identity. It tends to be your immutable characteristics, whether it's gender, race, sexual orientation, sex, stuff like that, to kind of align your political values or to bolster or pronounce them. I'm not using the right words here. I think you get the gist. Political correctness is like bending. Well, you know what? I'm not even sure how to define it, because in some senses you can take it to an extreme, or you could view it as common decency. Like, it all depends kind of on the individuals in question there. And then the socio-political polarization is just sort of, especially in 2015-16 when Trump started picking up momentum, how like society got super polarized between like being what I like to dub the game of push and pushback, and that just keeps increasing. You have people who start like kind of left of center, kind of right of center, then lefties like bah, bah, bah. So righties like bah, 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 and then bah, 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 and everyone's fucking yelling at each other, getting further and further away from any sort of compromise or reconciliation. For what reason? I don't fucking know. People just like playing tug of war extra hard with their dicks. I don't know. So let's talk about that a little bit, guys. Anyone want to chime in?
Yeah, I will. I feel like with Obama's election, there was a big like everyone was like, oh, identity politics, because we had our first black president, and so everyone was like, oh, that's just the whole platform, and like wanted to reduce it to that. But I feel like with Trump, that has happened so much more, because with Trump being so, as Shiny said, anti-Latino, Latino or whatever, and him having said so many, like being caught saying so many sexist, vulgar things to and about women, and just knowing the history of who he is and his involvement with women and like that being scummy, I think people have just been coming out of the woodwork with anyone who was maybe like closetedly racist or sexist now feels so much more comfortable being so, because they're like, what, the guy in charge says it's fine, like that's our president, he's doing it, obviously it's okay, and like somehow finding something in that they're like, oh, I see myself in that, and that it's okay. And so I feel like the like social polarization is so much worse right now than I feel like it has been in my lifetime, as far as like on the terms of like identities and things like that. And I mean, I am also Latina. I'm not Mexican. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm, U.S. citizen, regardless of if I was born here or there. But like, I've still had comments made to me. I've still had conversations that have been incredibly uncomfortable because of the people who are just not educated and don't understand that, like, okay, well, Puerto Rico is a territory, like all Puerto Ricans are Americans and things like that. I think it's harder right now in that department than it has been in a very long time.
I didn't realize the president of Puerto Rico conceded to Trump, though.
Lord.
That's still my favorite thing that has ever happened. And said, I spoke with the president of Puerto Rico. Jackass, listen.
I want to say this, or ask this rather. How accountable can we hold Trump specifically for the racially charged polarities here?
I don't know that we can, because
No, I think
that
blame him
we
a
can
lot.
what?
I think we can blame him a lot.
I think
To a degree, but like those racists already existed. You know what I mean? All they're doing is finding like a common.
I'm not
ground.
blaming him for them existing.
know.
I'm blaming him
Right?
for them feeling empowered.
No,
Finn,
that's
you're a
fair.
bit low on your mic.
That's fair. I could agree with that.
I will say this. I think what he did was really smart. I mean, and because there was a lot of people, a lot of racists who were really angry Obama got in there. So you come out, you run. You don't come out as a racist, but
You got a
say
racist
things
platform.
You say things that are on the line. You're on the line, and you're in your face, and you use terms like snowflakes and stuff like that. You have now took all those people who are angry for the last 8 years, and you've given them a candidate to vote for. So you don't necessarily have to be racist, but as long as you don't deny that you're racist. What I mean, am I wrong? Is that wrong?
No, you're right.
I
'Cause, like, I mean,
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you win those votes. And I mean, we make fun of the guy a lot because he's goofy and he
State of
does dumb
Kansas.
things. Yeah, I'm from Missouri, and God, it hurt.
Oof.
He does a lot of goofy things like that, but that's intelligent to understand. Hey, if I just do this, this is in the bag for me. And then we as Democrats put probably the worst candidate we could have
Oh,
as
God.
our primary
Oh,
against him.
God.
The-
Yeah.
That's true.
I get mad on that,
A
but
bad choice was
even
made.
go more into it, and like, so we're talking about like that identity politics and where you come to in that, and the term that snowflake piece that infuriates me to no end, because it's just an ultimate that a lot of people use defense. So I've had a conversation with the person, like people I work with, and I told you they lean very, very right, very right. And we had a conversation. I was telling them, I was like, you know, I'm all for that universal health care piece. And we go into that, and they're like, well, who's going to pay for that? That's free money. And I can't argue back, because I tell them, I said, no, it's not free money. Every freaking week, they take 90 to 120 bucks out of my paycheck to give me health care that doesn't cover health care. So I would just take that and good. Now give me health care that works. And they say, oh no, that's snowflake. You guys all just want free stuff. What do you want me to pay for your college? Yes. Yes, I would.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right,
Snowflake, that's not that kind of thought process. I would just like, hey, let my taxes do something for me.
we need them to bomb children in other countries, so you gotta chill out. We got first
Think about
things
that.
first, my friend.
Yeah.
That's on me.
That's most important.
But
yeah, that's on me. Dang.
that's all right.
Snowflake.
The economic to political thing, that's a huge debate in itself.
Yeah.
Would anyone else like to comment on the idea of political correctness, polarization, or identity politics?
Yeah, so I think with political correctness, there's a line between being able to exercise your right to free speech and not being a dick. So I think that I don't think that you should be censored if I disagree with the thing that you're saying, or I don't think you should be censored if you're saying things that you believe that I think are hateful. But I do think that you shouldn't be such an asshole, you know? And it's
Yeah.
also my right to say you're an asshole, right? So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when someone's like, don't censor me, I'm like, I'm not censoring you. I'm
just also not being censored.
just
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
you're being an asshole.
Yeah.
And so counterculture, I don't know, like if the counterculture's intention is censorship, that's one thing, but if counterculture is their intention is to counter protest, then I don't see, I mean, like I don't know if I'm misrepresenting what counterculture exactly is, but I think that there is like, no, I don't think you should say that's gay, but because by saying that's gay, you really mean that's bad. And if you're substituting the word gay for bad, then like you're kind of meaning that gay means bad. And I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that you should be completely shut down and you shouldn't be allowed to say it, but I do think that you should think better of it.
Make
So
better
like,
decisions. was
Yeah.
important.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
So-
about
What do you mean
education.
by allowed, though?
Well, I don't think that in no way do I think that someone should be able to suppress your free speech because you're
like
saying
legally,
something
though?
bad. Yeah,
Or-
legally.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Like
I was
I
gonna
as a
say.
person can say, I don't like when you fucking say that, and I'm not going to associate with you because you say things that are hateful.
Right.
But I, as like the government, cannot say you are going to jail now because you just
Right.
said that's gay, and I don't
That's-
like that. That's not okay.
I think, isn't it in Canada and, well, alright, some areas of Canada and maybe even California, they're beginning to fine people for misgendering people. Is that a thing?
I don't know. I do
I-
want to comment on one thing that's being said in chat though. I see something saying freedom of speech is being attacked, and I definitely don't agree with that. I think that like, yes, political correctness is becoming more of a thing, but political correctness is becoming more of a thing the more educated that we are about society. The more that we are learning about differences of us as humans and us as people, we're becoming more accepting and more understanding of one another. And no one is attacking free speech because free speech protects you from the government, like from like having legal things happen to you. No one is doing that. We are just, it's like a lot of people either in person or more commonly on the internet, someone says something that's hateful and someone else says, hey, that's really not cool, that's really sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, whatever. Like that's hateful. That is a hate-fueled thing that you just said, and I don't like it. I really don't think you should say it because it's incredibly insensitive to this large group of people. And then someone's like, nah, fuck you, this is my free speech. And it's like, yeah, it's your free speech, but it's also my freedom to like walk away from you and disassociate with you because I think that was hateful.
Yeah, I don't think it's that nobody can say anything anymore. I think it's that you can say whatever you want, but like someone saying, hey, you shouldn't say that isn't because they're censoring you, it's because they think that you shouldn't say what you just said.
Yeah.
And
There's no gun to your head. Shiny, I will ask you and everyone else who's going to speak from now on to try to tie this in to the current political landscape. I think we all kind of have an understanding of what it all entails. Political correctness in itself. So let's try to tie it to how polarized we are in the realm of politics. Shiny, add what you would like.
So I was just going, so the fine for misgender pronoun, I know that, just getting to that real quick, that was like the misreport of a law that they're putting into place for businesses, making the business have to use the proper pronoun for that individual. But as soon as that went into effect, a lot of news sites reported that it was citizens could be fined $250,000 if they didn't use it. The law wasn't for the citizens, it was for the businesses discriminating against employees, not for that.
In Canada or California?
It was, the only one I can find was New York just now. New York was passing a thing about it. But the next level, like on top of that, we talked about the identity politics and everything. Time Magazine's article.
Sarah, you're very loud and clicky.
I'm sorry. I'm muted.
I heard her tap dancing on the floor.
It was going. Time Magazine's cover article this month was for it's called Youthquake, and they said the world that we are in is going to be drastically shaped soon by the young who are going to be making decisions. And it's a picture of an old, decrepit world being broken in half, and then like a new world coming out of it. With that identity politics, if you look at it, do you think that we go into all this and we talk about like everything we were just going over? Is it because we are becoming more socially aware, and maybe that piece into it, like
Well,
the youth are coming up and they're requiring more from the individuals around us? Like, it used to be okay, like, hey, the government just did whatever they wanted in secrecy and we're the people and all that's what they want, but now we're starting to ask questions.
here's the thing, and it's kind of funny because maybe it's my fault, but it seems like this sort of discussion or topic kind of comes up on a lot of different Soul Speaks. As you were saying, Shiny, like the world is naturally sort of gearing itself more towards this politically correct, accommodating maybe culture,
Yeah.
and I'll say off the bat, I 100% love the idea of people being more empathetic and compassionate in general. That's great. But then again, you have the ugly flip side of it, where people want to virtue signal, where they want to seem better than other people, and cancel culture, as Carolina Blue Jay mentioned, use like very, I won't say trivial, but it's new. A lot of people are still learning. A lot of people are still adapting. I would say most Americans, I'd like to think most people in the world, want to have good relationships with their fellow citizens. But this polarization that has stemmed from, I want to say, around the 2015 mark, has put everybody in a default combative position. And I feel like the way we're addressing political correctness and identity politics should not even be a thing, first of all. Political correctness, though, it's, fuck, I forgot what I was saying now. We're pit against each other, and it seems to be coming from a place of fear as opposed to a place of love. And that is exacerbated by people like Donald Trump, who, while I don't think I've seen enough proof to definitively say Donald Trump is racist. But I do 100% agree that I have not seen it.
The man literally wants to build a wall to separate.
We'll get to that. Alright, I'm not done. Blue, I'm not done. But I can 100% see how he's created an atmosphere where people are more comfortable being bigoted, racist, homophobic, transphobic. That's 100% a thing. So what I'm getting at here is that people, A, should not be using other people as an excuse to feel comfortable being dickheads. 2, we shouldn't associate Trump and everyone who supports him, and I mean everyone, I don't mean the crazy fucking people in Charlotte with their tiki torches and fucking aversions to, never mind. So fuck those guys, that's all I'm saying. But yes, we shouldn't be saying everyone who likes Trump is a bigot, and now we have to push like 10,000-fold to get what could be a very positive message across, but is now coming more so off as a hateful one.
Well, right, because what you're saying, like, okay, so I have a friend who is like extreme Trump fan, right?
Oh.
And like literally cannot talk to him about anything political because there is that like his view is the opposite. His is like all Democrats are quote unquote snowflakes.
Oh god.
And like and libtards and all this other stuff. And I'm like, you can't be like putting an entire group of people like to one extreme. Like just because one person voted against or for someone, it doesn't make you like stupid, racist, you know, whatever. Like we were just voting or not voting because of our beliefs not coinciding or coinciding successfully with said candidate. And like the problem with Trump is he built himself on a platform of hate by not coming out directly, sure, and saying like, yeah, I hate Mexicans or like, you know, Arabs, whatever. But he didn't not say it. Like Shiny said, he didn't deny it. You know what I mean? Like he let people like think, yeah, this is okay. And like now because of that, people are like okay with hating people and like being discriminatory and being racist, and it's just it's sad.
Didn't he denounce the bigots at one of his rallies? Like some Nazis or something? He denounced them publicly?
At the Nazi rally, he said that they're good people on both sides.
No,
Yeah.
he...
Yeah.
Yes,
He-
that actually happened.
He...
It's on video. I can get you a clip.
Yeah.
No,
At the
no.
Nazi rally.
I
No,
know-
no, 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 no.
I know-
Because
I know-
the way I
Like-
remember this, it wasn't all Nazis. Like there were people on the
They were
right and
shouting,
people on the
"Jews will
left.
not replace us.
That was the Charlottesville thing, right?
Yeah.
But was that
There-
all the people, or was that a chunk of them?
There was a certain like Nazi get together or protest at some point that Trump did denounce. That did happen. I do remember that as well. Watching the news on that, him talking about basically.
The man was sued because he wouldn't rent to black people, and he lost.
I'm
And
not
that happened
saying.
again. No, I'm just saying that like, Trump is like legally
That
racist.
I didn't
Yeah.
know about that.
Yeah.
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 That was the thing. Like he got convicted of racially
I think
discriminating
I
for
think it's
renting.
settled. But yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Well,
Also
I
mocked a
mean,
disabled
that's.
person like on TV.
I'm not
like,
saying he's a
around.
good guy. All right. I'm
No, I
not.
know.
Look,
I'm
let me
saying
be
there's
clear.
things
Fuck
out there.
Trump.
Wow.
On.
I'm
We've
saying
got,
there's things out there, though,
it
that
seems
point to
5
all these-
against and
I'm
1
I'm just
for.
saying, like the wall thing, for instance. Like people automatically scream racism because the other side of the wall is a predominantly non-white population. So like, why doesn't he want to build a wall on Canada? But I mean, if you look at it, his whole perspective, and let me be abundantly clear here, I don't want a wall. I don't want a wall at all. And I think immigration should be a lot easier for everybody. What I will say though is Trump, being the statist type of guy he is, was like, oh, well, we have to get tighter reins on our country. They're sending criminals here. They're sending drug dealers. They're not sending their best and brightest. I disagree with that. I think his facts are off there. I think they're skewed. What I don't think is that he was secretly saying, oh, well, all Mexicans are bad people. Like, I didn't get that message. I guess I could see how some people can jump to that conclusion, but he didn't say it. We don't have that in writing.
Okay, so in that case, is the president misinformed?
Yes.
Or spreading misinformation? You
Yes.
think the president does not know still to this day that that's false? Because he'll stand by that statement.
I can't tell.
I think he's
That's
a
the thing.
complete
Is he
moron.
misinformed, or is he intentionally misinforming? And I think it is much clearer that it is the latter.
I think. Okay,
Can
I
I
see.
kind
But
of,
is he
interrupt
doing
for a
that?
second?
Is his motivation because he's racist? That would be my question.
No, I think his motivation is because he's shameless. I think his
Okay.
motivation for almost everything is that he's shameless. And that's why he looks stupid sometimes. It's not that he's stupid, it's that it's below him to care. So, like, I don't have to know that because I'm the president of the United States, you know? Like, I don't think, like, the man has sociopathic tendencies. And I think that almost everything that he does is to better his own position. And so it's not that. So that's why I think that it's hard to say what the Republican identity is right now, is because it supports a man who like doesn't care and doesn't have an ideology. So when the Republican Party has to follow someone who no one has any idea what he's going to do next, right? And the party has to shift to follow that chaos, makes it really hard to figure out what the right-wing ideology is right now.
Gotcha. Deadlift.
Like,
What I was gonna say is, I can't stand Donald Trump, but he actually shows how, unfortunately, disparaging the Democratic and the Republican Party is. There's absolutely no bipartisanship whatsoever. There's no unison on anything the man does, and part of the biggest problem is there's no proper checks and balances with the legislative or the Supreme Judge when it comes to any of his executive decisions. You can sit here and say, and I hate having to defend Donald Trump. This is just the biggest gap of politics. He's even said it himself. The fact he's even president, shows that like the system not only is it flawed, him screaming his way in and them not having anything. Like I haven't watched C-SPAN in probably years since he's become president. I decided the other day, fuck, I'm just gonna sit there and watch. And I'm listening to the House and the Senate going back and I'm like, Jesus, you guys sound worse than you did when Obama was president or back when Clinton was president. Shit, worse than when George Bush was president. There's absolutely, it's like it's worse as far as like what they're gonna agree as a group.
I do want to say, I think that Trump winning is a sign that the system is working, not that it's not working. Because if the system were not working, then Donald Trump would never have been elected. The Republican Party did not want him. If there were power of the people to get an outsider in that they want, then Donald Trump would never be president. Because up until he won the nomination, everyone in that party said that he was a joke. Everyone. It was only once he won that all of these people turned and fell in rank and said we're Republicans and we're disciplined and we're supporting this president.
I think it's both. I think that it both shows it shows an example of the system working, but in a different way it shows an example of the system not working.
Right. I mean, that to the people. I mean, he didn't win the popular vote, but he did win the way a Republican president would have won. If it were someone else and they had won the same numbers, they still would have won, the representative, the electoral vote. So, like, the fact that people can change, like, can pick someone like Donald Trump and let him win is to me, that's a sign that we really do have a democracy where the human, like the people can pick an outsider and make them the president if they want them to.
Trump being that outsider?
Absolutely.
No, fuck all that. Because
no one in the GOP wanted Trump. Nobody in the GOP wanted Trump. So if parties are deciding everything, then there's no way that Trump would ever have made it this far.
Penn Jillette, I think it was, said that Trump winning at least proves the Illuminati doesn't exist.
This is what I'm saying. Like, the people do have the power to screw up the system, right? By electing someone who really should not be there.
When you look at that election becomes the perfect storm of nonsense. Like, who do we have running against Trump? Is that the Zodiac Killer? Was that who was against him? It's him versus that person. And then,
that was Trump made up that rumor about Ted Cruz's father just to smear his opponent, right?
Which is wild.
And the fact, I mean, like, honestly, Ezra Klein is somebody I listen to a lot, and Ezra Klein says, like, it seems like this whole Trump saga has been a test of what Republicans are willing to take, right? Pushing that breaking point further and further, right? This whole impeachment especially, where first it was like, no, he would never have said Joe Biden, he needs an investigation on the phone. Oh, he did? Well, then there was no quid pro quo. Well, there was? Well, that's not an impeachable offense. It's like this, he keeps pushing the wall further and further and further to see what the party will break on. But as long as they maintain discipline, then they can, then that check on power is just not there. It doesn't exist.
And I think when you said, like, the Republican Party doesn't necessarily stand for anything right now, and I think that is so right, like, in so many aspects of what they're doing. He is literally doing as he pleases. That's what his party is. That's just what he's doing right now. But if you look at it, like, what would he have to do to have the party not side with him? And I don't know if there is that point. I don't know. Maybe take away their guns. That's a hot button issue for him, but he won't do that.
The man defrauded a children's cancer charity. Like,
yeah, and they're cool with it.
How can anyone
did he?
Behind that?
Does anyone have a source for that?
In New York, he is no longer allowed to operate charities because he defrauded a children's cancer charity. I will find you the source.
He's an awful dude.
He's the ultimate scumbag.
Okay, I would like to get a consensus here. Just a quick question. I'm going to ask you all 2 questions. I want a yes or no answer for each. 1, is Trump racist for wanting a wall? 2, is Trump racist? Period. Just in general.
Yes.
Same question. But yes.
Yeah, it's the same question. Really.
I will say, just for wanting a wall, that's not racist. Is he a racist? Yes.
I agree with Shiny.
I'm gonna agree with Shiny after hearing
Like,
about
there-
Finn's dispute with the court.
There are walls everywhere. I mean, a lot of people put up walls, and a lot of people put up walls for racist reasons. But I have a fence in my backyard. My fence is back there, so I don't have to walk my dogs. That's my reason. My fence isn't back there to keep the Mexicans out of my backyard. Now, when I catch them back there, I'm like, hey, get out of here.
Oh my god.
Stop stepping on my tomatoes.
Yeah. For those of you just coming in, Shiny Shoes is Mexican. I just
am
want
Hispanic, I
to.
am Hispanic, for wanting a secure border,
Motherfucker.
that isn't a bad thing. A secure border isn't a bad thing. The way we went about asking for that secure border and what we said of how we were going to get the secure border and everything else to that piece, that is when it became a problem. The
I was
moment
wrong, by the way. Go
I
ahead.
was wrong.
No, I was wrong. The cancer charity thing is a lie, so I was duped. I apologize.
Look, Donald Trump
just
still
do.
beats
I
up
just
kids every weekend. He just
No,
goes on the
circulating.
streets
I'm
and
sorry,
punches
I'm
little
sorry.
kids in the mouth. I've seen it. All right, that didn't really happen, but
No,
I
that
wouldn't
was a
be
lie.
surprised if it did.
Yeah. But the way we went about it, like a lot of things into it, and I think the biggest thing that kind of came against him is the whole campaign. When your slogan is "Make America Great Again," that could be taken so many damn ways, and we're never like, if you ask them what does that mean, we're gonna make America great again. When was it great? What was great about it, man?
Again.
Back when we were like lead of industry, but hella racist against African American people. So I mean, there's nothing that was definitive. Like, he could have went, we're gonna make America #1 in industry again. That could be a slogan that you're not gonna see. You're not gonna put on either side of the fence. That's, hey, I want to be great in industry.
You're not gonna put it on a
Instead-
bumper sticker either. I'm just saying.
I'd wear that hat way before I wear my MAGA hat.
I mean,
So-
I don't
great.
have a MAGA hat.
Great's an innocuous word in itself.
Just a lot into it, and I don't know, man. It's that there's a reason why he chose the words he chose.
I hear you. And I think it plays into what you were saying before about him sort of being quote unquote smart, or just actually smart but in a horrible manner in the way he played the election.
Yeah.
He used our polarization to our advantage. He wanted people to get fired up and play that tug of war on the penis game. And it
Exactly.
fucking worked. It's sad, and I'm really hoping to see going into 2020 people think about this. Like, emotions are important. Let me be clear, they are important. Emotions are valid. They're part of human nature and existence. We're social animals. We affect one another and our emotional states. But we cannot let that dictate who we put into high office, who's going to be not only helping to make our policies, which is huge in itself, but leading our country. Like, I do not want America fuck yeah as president ever again. I want, and I don't want Hillary Clinton, like the snake in the grass, as president either. And we're going to have to do better in terms of sitting down and talking to one another instead of being like, oh, well, you can't speak on this because you didn't experience it, or you're not this, so you can't talk about that, or you hate me because you like this candidate's policy. I don't know how many times I got accused of 20 different things because I think, in general, a lot of government programs are bad. Well, they help minorities. Well, that's great. I just feel the private sector can do it better. And again, that's another can of worms. I think,
What evidence do you have for that? That the private sector does good things for minorities.
for minorities specifically?
Isn't that's what I thought that was the point you were making, that
Oh,
and
no,
public programs are good for minorities, but the private sector would do it better.
No, public programs aren't, I think, better for anybody, really. If we gave the private sector a chance, outsourcing it to people who actually had a sort of stake in it and could be held accountable, like the government cannot be, I think we would see better fruits of our...
What's holding corporation accountable that government cannot? Because like government is held accountable by the people, corporations are only held accountable by the market, which you're saying shouldn't be unregulated.
And
corporations,
even the market doesn't, like, a lot of times they don't care about market. It's more of the board of whoever's on
the
the
trustees.
board of that thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so I'm saying, what evidence do you
yeah.
have that the private sector has any desire to make anyone, like like by definition, the private sector's main incentive is profit.
Okay.
So like, no, I mean, like, that's what capitalism is, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can extend to philanthropy if someone has enough money and there's charity still in a capitalist society.
Right, but if you look at how much charity is happening in our capitalist society, it's certainly not what's being done.
True.
This is not a capitalist society. At best, this is crony. Whoa, no, holy shit. Okay, so at best, we are looking at crony capitalism. This is socialist. We already have socialism. There is government
programs within a greater capitalist system. What the system that dominates our market system is capitalism.
He's right.
There are very few things that are decommodified. Like
Sweden has more capitalist ventures than the U.S. Their market is more free than the U.S.
They also have way more socialist ventures than the U.S.
Yes, that is true too. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, you would think
that
there's
having some social programs does not automatically mean that our market system is no longer capitalist, because at its core, our market system is 100% capitalism.
You can't say that when we're bailing out these banks and businesses with $1 billion, when our very money production is centralized. We don't even have competition in currency that we use with everything.
Is backing and providing a safety net for those corporations doesn't mean that the general system that they trade on is not capitalism.
It is when you set regulations for those industries and when you compete with those industries.
No, regulated capitalism is still 100% capitalism. Like Keynesianism, like Keynesian capitalism is capitalism with a social network.
It's not free market capitalism.
No, it's not, but nothing is free market capitalism.
That's what I'm advocating for here, to be clear.
No. Free market capitalism means that, like, it does not matter how much toxic waste is in your water.
That is not true, because you can still sue, like we talked to... No. We're going down the rabbit hole now. We're going... Look, all right, like... I will need to keep this brief. Like I mentioned in the Discord, it's not just everybody runs roughshod over each other. You can have free market capitalism and still have sort of government oversight in the judiciary.
No, as soon as you have government oversight, it is no longer free market. That's what definition of free market capitalism.
In the judiciary branch and in the military branch. There would be very minor intrusions, but if you limit it to those two sectors...
But that's not free market. So now you're just saying there should be some, but only the few that you are interested in, right? Like where are we drawing the line between, like, now...
If you want to take it to the extreme, let's go entirely anarcho-capitalistic. You could still have private sector judges. You could still have private sector courts that do hold people accountable.
But now you've replaced democracy.
We can't, Finn, I'm sorry, we can't get into this. We can get into this on another episode.
What you've done is you've convoluted a political system with a financial system, and that's not like a market system. And that's not a fair thing.
Socialism is the blending of economy and government, or at least some sort of majority oversight onto. When workers own the means of production.
You can have democratic socialism, you can have communist... well, you can't technically have communist socialism, because communism is the blending of state and socialism. Right?
Shut up.
So you absolutely can have socialism and democracy in the same thing at the same time. Just like you can have It's just like you can have democracy and capitalism in the same place at the same time. So what I'm saying is when you have those things, what you're doing is you're replacing a market system with another market system while maintaining the same political system. So when you hop to anarcho-capitalism, what you've done is you haven't replaced the market system, you've replaced the political system. So you've replaced democracy with anarchy and maintained the market system, which is capitalism.
Free market capitalism.
Well, sure, but but again, capitalism can exist on a wide spectrum of regulation.
Yeah. Okay. You know what?
That's why you have to specify that it's free market capitalism.
Okay. I don't even know how we went down this road just now. All right. I feel a free market is more conducive to everybody getting what they want than a bunch of bloated government programs with bureaucracies and people who I don't feel are held accountable for their decisions and their corruption.
But again, you're convoluting market systems and political systems. You can have free market capitalism in a democracy. You can also have free market capitalism in an authoritarian dictatorship.
Don't say these things to me right now, sir. All right, we're moving on, Finn. We will get into this in the future more so, and I'm gonna read like 3 books. All right, I'm gonna read one half of one book, but I'm gonna pretend I read 3.
Start with Communist Manifesto. That's a good one.
Dianetics it is. Everybody pick up a copy of Dianetics. You're gonna love it.
If you're gonna read Marx, read Capital before you read the Communist
Das Kapital.
Listen, I'm gonna read Freakonomics, and I'm gonna bring that to the table.
I have read it.
It's so good.
Okay. Where were we? I don't even remember. Alright, an argument for or against Trump we could discuss his impeachment, his social and legal scandals, foreign and fiscal policies. Did he MAGA?
I wouldn't say he MAGA.
I don't think he MAGA'd.
I mean, he's repealing environmental laws left and right. Like the planet we live on, he's absolutely destroying it at a rapid pace. Like, okay, I've heard like arguments from people saying like, well, the damage was already done before he got into office. It's not like you can fix it. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, like yeah, obviously we were well on our way to polluting and whatnot as a people, yes, beforehand. But like, you don't need to accelerate the problem. You could instead try and add to like the solution, maybe. Possibly.
Not only did he not make America great again, he's kind of hurting the whole world a little bit with some of that environmental stuff.
So yeah, one of the biggest things that I remember, and like my friends talked about when he came to the office, and he kind of did a tax break for corporations. A lot of corporations with that tax break were recommended to give that tax break back to their employees. The wages have still stayed stagnant, so a lot of employees got a stipend, a dividend from the company. So even where I work, the bajillion of employees got like a $300 check, and then depending on time there, some got $500 and everything like that. So that was great. Oh, that did okay. It may not have. But I do know a lot of friends that got money. They did get something from their corporation. Well, the thing is, when you look at it, that was cool then, but in the long run, those tax breaks are still in place, yet nothing changed for the wages that they gave to the employees at the companies. So they got a small time, some of them got a small time, hey, here's a thank you for doing this. And a lot of my friends are like, I've never gotten that before, this is great. But they're not realizing that their company is now making way more than what they were before, and you are not seeing the benefit of it, even though technically, if you look at it, that's what it was supposed to do, but it didn't.
It went to
my friends, I have some friends that are like, you know, well, the economy is the greatest it's ever been in the history of America. Like, he's got to be doing something right. And I'm like, even if say that's true, right? Like,
actually,
hate is like more widespread than ever. The environment is like being destroyed now, like faster than it was, and other countries now view us as a joke. Like they literally think we are a joke. I don't know about you, but that to me does not scream MAGA. If anything, I think we've gone in reverse. But hey, I mean, some of us have new jobs, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it true the stock market's up, but job creation or getting is down? Is that the
A
case?
lot of
So it's easy to manipulate number, say whatever you really want
but
when you look at it.
even still, there are very, very positive aspects of the stock market right now, and
Yeah.
the economy in general, right? Where our GDP is doing very well. Like, it's very, very hard to hit Trump on the economy right now, and the thing is that like the trend of the economy when Trump took office was already kind of the same as it is now. The trajectory of a lot of these graphs have maintained their exact same slopes. So if you look at certain data points that measure the economy, like the weight of the dollar and GDP and you know, a lot of factors, you'll see that they pretty much just stayed on. Like, it's not like he turned the economy around, it's just that he did not tank it, right? He just maintained the course that it was already on, and it was on a really good course. So yes, the economy is better than ever, but I don't know. It's very, very hard to say what impact Trump has had on it.
Right.
And we still have yet to see a lot of the long-term impacts of the changes that he's made.
Okay.
Fair.
So that
And-
what's that phrase like causality versus
Causation versus
Causation.
correlation.
Yeah, that thing.
So, yeah. So there's this thing. There's this Latin phrase. It's a legal thing. They say post hoc ergo propter hoc, which means it happened after, therefore because of it. Right? It means causation is correlation. That because it happened right after, you are presuming that it is because of the thing that preceded it.
And that's a fallacy.
Yes, it's a
Okay.
fallacy.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like saying, like, yeah, look how great everything is, but like, it's partially because things were already on path to be doing very well.
All right. I can get behind that idea.
And a lot of things so it's not that you can just go in and say, you know, whatever I want and then automatically gonna kind of come back to that. What I'm saying is, like, when you look at it and we talk about like unemployment rate and everything else going like that, so unemployment rate might be low. Let's say I brought more unemployment rate down, but when you look at it, are the individuals in those jobs, are those jobs providing those individuals with the means that they need to survive? You look into all that pieces. So hey, I have more people, but if I have more people working at jobs that can't get them by, have I truly affected unemployment, or have I just made it that people have to be in jobs, but they are just as needy as they were before?
That's fair too.
And you're looking at it, and I mean, that's hard. It's hard to detach the two. And like I was saying before, just with that income, like that tax credit they gave the businesses and the cuts and everything, when FinDiesel was saying, I don't know what the Republican Party is standing for right now. If you asked me what they were standing for, I would say setting up big business for success. You don't think so? And I mean, that's just me.
Can you repeat that?
Setting up big business for success.
That before. Hold on. Whose microphone
Who's
is
that?
catching the stream? What is happening?
Yeah, what's going on?
I don't think it's me.
My stream's muted.
Let
My
me
stream's muted, Olin.
mute deadlift.
Yeah.
I think it was deadlift.
I think it
All right,
was.
deadlift. When I see your face cam come back up, I'll unmute your
I also need to mute him.
I still hear
your
it.
Discord.
Yeah, I still hear it too.
You do?
Yeah, everybody has to mute deadlift.
Oh
do you do
yeah.
that?
Coming out of him.
Right
Click on his, right click his face and then.
Deadlift, you have scorned us for the last time. Shiny, I meant the sentence that led up to setting up big businesses for success.
Devini says then why are small businesses struggling to find job candidates? I know many people who run small businesses who cannot find people qualified or otherwise. My little brother he's a manager at a very small business. They cannot afford to pay their employees $10, $11, $12 an hour. So some of your corporations have moved to the point where that's where they're starting at. Why would you go work somewhere making less, doing just as much work or less work than you could go right down the street and make $10 or $11, $12? So it's hard to argue that that's why. I mean, but that's why the small business can't afford to keep up with that.
Gotcha.
But, and it's just like I said, it's not just the way that I look at things, but big business, maybe. That's what I'm thinking. What it feels like to me.
Thank you, Shinies. I would like to bring something to the... well, before I move forward from that, does anyone have anything to add to Trump's foreign policies? If I seem to recall correctly, one of his first moves in office was bombing Syria. That was a thing that happened.
Yeah, he's still
That
significantly less than Obama did. Like
Less.
He tried. Yeah, no, Obama bombed Syria a lot. So Syria is a really complicated situation. Like
Yes.
a very, very, very complicated
The
situation.
whole Middle East seems to be.
Yeah.
Be a
Especially with
complicated
Iran and
situation.
Saudi Arabia.
So that's what makes Syria complicated, is that it is essentially a battleground
Yes.
for Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So there is a proxy war going on where the Saudis arm one side, Iran arms the other side, and then ISIS came out of this, and that's partially why we started supporting Saudi Arabia, is because they were fighting against ISIS that were Syria sponsored, and then but they stopped. So then Russia money came in to support Assad, and dude, it gets it gets really, 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 really complicated. But a lot of the reason that we put money into the Middle East and bomb Syria is to maintain our relationship with Saudi Arabia, who is fighting against Iran, who is funded by Russia. So, we're having a proxy war with Russia through Saudi Arabia and Iran, who are having a proxy war with each other in Iran, or in Syria.
Well, we also help Israel, who is also at odds with both of those nations.
Correct.
Yeah. So I'll posit this. Let's get a president who backs off. You know.
Let's get a president who
I would like that.
find these countries on a map. That would be nice.
Fuck you, Finn! You talking about my man Gary?
Is this the Aleppo thing again? Because I swear to God.
I was talking about Trump.
Okay, that's fair. All right, we cool.
We're good. Yeah, me and Seth immediately both were like. Honestly.
Look,
Steve's
honestly,
coming out of your ears.
but here's the thing, and I get the sentiment. I'll say this though, I don't care if they could find it on a map. It'd be beneficial that they do, but we have Google Maps, GPS your way to Saudi Arabia. I don't care.
Sure, but I mean, if we're talking about foreign relations, you should know a thing or two about the country. It's not just you can get that information, but if you're dealing with the country, you should know where it is.
But you can know things about it without knowing where it is.
Exactly, that's my point. Fuck the superficial stuff.
You can know everything about a country and just not be able to point it out on the map.
Syria is important for some of these things.
Well, yeah, the geographical positioning.
It's somewhere in here, but maybe can't point to it. I think that's fine.
Yes.
I guess I'm not saying they need to be a master in geography, but I get what you're saying.
That's all, and that's a bit nitpicky on my end. I get it. I do agree that
That's because you're sensitive about Aleppo.
I'm just saying we should hold our president to a slightly higher standard when it comes to some of these things.
Yes, we need to hold them to an extremely high standard when it comes to understanding, one, the fundamental, I'll say, truth of non-interventionalism. As much as we could help doing so. We have how many military bases throughout the world right now? Too fucking many, I'll tell you that much.
I agree with you entirely. I just think there's a lot more about some of this. I think that sometimes it's I also agree we shouldn't be bombing Syria, but I also think it's important to understand the context of why we are bombing Syria before we judge it.
Well, as far as I can tell, in the early 1900s, around the World War I area, the UK, France, I want to say, and America had a hand in it, carved up the Ottoman Empire, and we basically been involved with their shit ever since.
Ever since.
And it's insane. It's insanity. We tell the American people either A, they're a threat, B, we're shoving freedom up their ass and they need it. And it's both like nonsense. I get it. I'm not the type to think everything is black and white, like military bad. Like, I get there's some good humanitarian aid efforts that go on, but the bad seems to outweigh the good quite a bit, and politicians Trump.
I agree. I'm not saying that we should be militaristic, but I am saying that some of these things, like, just because a president was bombing something doesn't mean that it was necessarily the worst thing in the world, nor was it necessarily like interventionism in the way that we see like our invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan has. Because Syria's weirder. It's not just we are there for oil, you know, like it very much was.
Opium too.
Some of these.
No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Yeah. But this one does seem to be a little more humanitarian than it is like resources and like imperialism.
That's true.
There's a lot into that, like what we have going on in there, and a lot of people are kind of into that feeling that saying, you know, us being over there a lot of times would be just as hurtful and impactful as us just cold turkey just pulling out and leaving. Like, there's a lot going on in that specific part of the world, and do we need to be involved at the point that we are now? Probably not. But if we just completely pull out and leave, we can't be 100% sure what the outcome and ramifications of that are going to be.
Yeah, actually, we just saw some of this because we pulled troops out of Syria, which allowed the Syrians to and the Turks to move in and start attacking Kurds. And part of the only reason the Kurds were protected in the region is because we had forces on the ground. Some of these things get really, really complicated.
I think it's a double-edged sword too, because like on the one hand, like America has always kind of been about like helping other, you know, countries that need it, and that's kind of what made us awesome. But at the same time, no. Anyway, like at the same time though, it's like we're getting involved in countries far too often for my liking, and like you look back at other things, like Vietnam started off because we got involved in something we never should have gotten involved in. Period.
We were still on a we win wars high, right?
Yeah.
We were like we had just won like 4 back-to-back. And we like that was a huge reason why we got involved in that, and it was stupid. But
yeah, and like the last thing I want to happen is like we have another one of those moments where we're America, we can beat anybody, and we get involved in the wrong thing and piss off the wrong country with the right military, and then the next thing you know, we're the ones getting rolled over. You know what I mean? Because like it or not, we were to get into a war. I don't think our military is the best anymore. I really don't.
Oh, our military's in the amount of military we have is literally insane.
We spend the most in the world, and it's more than the next like 8 countries
combined. Yes,
it is.
It's insanity.
That's all well and good, but like China, for instance, like they outnumber us like huge.
Was
if they
it
decided
3 to
they
1?
wanted to like attack,
yeah, but it's
can't
not
tell me
really,
that like money's gonna help us. You know,
in World War I, that mattered more than it would now. Like we fight much less with bodies now than we used to.
Yes. What I'll say here too, without sparking another side debate with Finn, but we will get to it. We will get to it in a future episode, just to make it clear. Just to make it clear, guys. We do have an episode of Soulspeak lined up in the near future. We're gonna talk about economy and government, so I don't want to get too far into that. I want to say on this that we need to worry more about our dollar than we do about military invasion, about these trade wars, about how we handle our own money. Blue, I agree. We don't want to get invaded by China. That'd be bad news, all right? I'm not denying that. But at the end of the day, we have nukes, we have technology, we have military bases everywhere. I feel pretty secure in that sense. Maybe not as secure against potentially a homebrewed sort of coup fucking citizens over, but that could be a story for another day. But it seems that people are pretty happy about fascism because of how much support Trump has shown. To me, he seems pretty authoritarian, since we're talking about him, or supposed to be. I figured I'd throw that out there.
He's at least using the playbook. Like, if he's not an authoritarian, he is trying to be.
Yep, he definitely has the
For sure.
personality.
Nukes are more
For
of
sure. He does not like being told no.
Nukes are more of like a deterrent, I think, because honestly, like the whole we have nukes thing is just silly in my view, because if you use your nukes, the other countries that have nukes are going to use their nukes. No one is going to use their nukes. It's going to come down to soldiers and like tanks and that kind of shit.
Mutually assured destruction might not cut it forever. Don't rule it out.
It's done a really good job of like keeping people from fighting for a little while.
That's all it is, though.
We're like, oh, we got nukes, and you're like, damn it, let's not go to war then.
yeah, exactly. Like, but like, no one would ever use it.
That's true.
Like, no one's gonna sit there.
I would not say never.
No one. Yeah.
Of course. It's been a pretty decent deterrent.
It's gonna.
This is not the apocalypse. In which case, push the button. But
I don't think we should have them, but you know.
I'd agree, but I think that the problem is if we said, hey, we have no nukes, they have no nukes, somebody's gonna get a nuke. Like, it's not that if we just got rid of ours, everybody got rid of. Now, I'm not saying that we should have it as, hey, like, yeah, I can use this if you use this, because again, somebody eventually is gonna get wild enough to be like, somebody's gonna get wild enough to go in on it one day, but it's a bad deal all across the board.
Yeet.
Yeet.
Gonna yeet a nuke at
I
it.
just think we should back off a little bit in other countries because it's pissing people off.
What?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Here's what I'll ask you guys. Real quick. What countries or regions should we stay in? That's what I'll throw out there. Chat, you could answer as well.
With bodies or money?
Bodies.
None.
That's hard to say. Like,
Yeah, that's a really hard call to make.
We'd have to be a lot more informed than we currently are.
that's
Yeah.
one thing.
I don't think I know enough to
if-
be able to make that call.
If I had to make a decision right now with my limited ass knowledge, I would opt for, if I had to choose between all or nothing, I would likely go with all.
I'd say all, yeah. If it was an all or nothing situation, I'd say get everybody out. Like,
Right now.
But again, I feel like I need to have a lot more information about why we're over in certain places and what exactly is going on to make that call.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
I don't have an educated enough like background on that to know.
And I think Trump did not. He pulled an Obama. He pulled a Bush. He pulled a Clinton. We're gonna bring our troops home. We're gonna I like peace. Send more troops out. That's what they do.
Yeah.
It's just lie after lie. And that's all right. We probably won't get into it as much. But I want to throw it out there. Like, Obama wasn't that great. All right, he was. Like, I get why people liked him more than Trump.
What
but
metrics? What metrics are you using for that?
Okay, I'm using a few here. One, and I'll keep the economic stuff kind of downturned a little bit in this one, or downplayed. I'll say he didn't do much for the drug war. He didn't do much for sex work. He didn't do much for war. He didn't do much for lessening unjust laws or, to my knowledge, decreasing our prison population. Our president should immediately, in my opinion, let non-violent, non-coercive offenders go. Usually that'll come down to sex workers and drug users.
Sex workers and drug users.
He actually made a lot of efforts towards releasing people from prisons.
Why couldn't he?
A lot of them were very, very much thwarted. Like, he made it a central point of his campaign to try to close Guantanamo Bay, and was just blocked.
Yeah, I do
over
actually
and
remember
over
that.
and over and
As-
over again.
Of it,
It was very, very central. Like it
Really?
still depresses him to this day that he was not able to close Guantanamo Bay.
that
I
I
do remember
that I
that.
didn't know. I thought it was an empty
it was-
promise that he just said,
oh no, it was
"Fuck
like
it."
he tried and tried and tried and just could not get it through.
Huh.
He was
It's
also.
like-
I'm gonna look
inherited a
into
huge
that. I
mess
didn't
of
know
his
that.
previous,
Regrets.
presidency in a lot of ways.
One of a what?
I said he also inherited a huge mess from the previous presidency.
That's true.
It was a hole that he could not dig himself
But-
out of.
But see
And
that
nor could anyone have expected him to, you know?
that's
That
the
was-
thing. The mess keeps getting bigger and bigger, and
Yeah.
Trump is not the man to clean it up. That's for damn sure.
No. No.
Finn, that
That's
was very
kinda,
interesting though.
He actually one of the things that I like, the latitude that I give to Obama is in that a lot of the things that he tried to do he was unable to accomplish. I think most of his shortfalls come where he was blocked, not by not trying or that and carpet bombing the Middle East. But
Right, but he wasn't an empty promise guy necessarily. He just wasn't
No.
getting it achieved.
Yeah.
That
like
wasn't.
the Senate made the point. I mean, McConnell day one said, I'm going to
I'm not
make
gonna let
it a
him
point
get through
to make
anything,
him a one-term president, and I will block everything that he does. And he did a very good job at it. So, while he could have and this is another thing, is like, is it okay for a president to abuse their power to get past an obstructive Congress? Which was like the central talking point of the Obama presidency, was like, this dude's not gonna overstep his boundaries just because he wants to push his own agenda through. If he did, we would have seen such a huge push to the left that never happened.
Yeah, and I think that's a double-edged sword though with that, because if you say, can a president abuse their power to get over an obstructive Congress, but so if Obama were to utilize that to try and do some of the things like shutting down prisons and other proactive things he was trying to do, but then you would see Trump just willy-nilly every time that people were like, yeah, you can't do that. He'd be like, they're obstructing me, and fly off the handle the way that he does.
Yep.
And it would be very easy for him to claim intentional obstruction when realistically it was just that he was being unreasonable.
And it's such a stark contrast that you see now with Trump, because you saw Obama trying really hard not to overstep his position.
Yeah.
And you see Trump just haphazardly stumbling through so much.
I think some of that plays into the
Trump's
social climate of
position
race,
is
and I'm not going to get
unpowerful.
into that.
That's
Yeah, well, and he's
You
like,
do.
this
How
whole impeachment-
so? Oh, Finn, you were saying something?
Sorry, I know impeachment is something we were going to talk about, but it's just so hypocritical to say the only thing that the only thing that they could point to that was corrupt about Ukraine, that was the alternative reason that he was going to send not going to send the footage over, was or the money, the funding was because Ukraine was so corrupt. But the only point of corruption that he pointed to was that the son of an American political figure was making money from being the son of an American political figure, when his children are making money
That
all over the world.
all over
Yup.
the place. So how can you honestly, in earnest, say to the American people, I'm concerned with corruption, when the exact same corruption is happening in your family every single day?
Mm-hmm.
Such nonsense.
Yeah, he's hypocritical as hell.
Yeah, and
I don't think anyone would
Republican
deny
position
that.
at the end was we don't need to hear witnesses because we already know that he has done what he's been accused of doing. We just don't think it's impeachable.
So, how do you all feel about that impeachment thing? I did some background research on it. I would like to hear from Deadlift if he has an opinion on it. He just got back. Yeah.
Well, first thing, you guys can hear me just fine.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Forgot to
Um,
unmute
Can't
him.
hear you.
No, I forgot to unmute him. I think we all probably did.
Oh,
okay.
No, I had
Oh, I
A bunch
muted
of us
him.
muted him earlier because of the echo.
yeah, I was watching the
whole
stream.
time.
Yeah, so honestly, it's kind of embarrassing. Especially the other day, you see Pelosi ripping up Trump's speech like it meant something, like some type of statement. I'm like, you're not a protester. You're a politician.
She's gross.
Yeah. The impeachment itself, I followed it a little bit. I didn't really feel like it was going to go anywhere, which is what I, pretty much expected. To me, honestly, impeachment was kind of a waste of time. It was almost ammo additional for him as the next presidential election was coming up. And I'll be honest with you guys, I don't really see too much on the left. I'm not really seeing that being Trump. He honestly, to me, looks like he's going to be president again.
Oh God.
I have a hard time believing that he would be
Don't-
president again. But again,
Don't-
I had a hard time believing that he would be president in the first place.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, I guess what does that mean?
The
Yep.
Democratic Party is
of
not
people not
really,
voting
just like the Republican Party, it doesn't really have necessarily like a solidified stance. The Democratic Party has a really hard time kind of like sticking to one person. I have a gut feeling they're going to go with Joe Biden anyway.
Oh, I think they're going to go with Bernie.
I don't know. They kind of really have a tendency to go with who's more popular on a, I don't know, that's what I want to use.
Popular for people and Bilderbergers alike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna have much faith in Bernie, and that's just
Yeah.
from what I've seen the last time.
Joe
from a
Biden's gonna-
2016 perspective, Hillary Clinton was the most popular thing in the United States. I know that now
Yeah.
we look back and say, like, look how bad a candidate she was, but, like, she was such a good candidate that, like, 10 other really strong candidates sat out just so she could run.
Right.
Like, there were 5 people in the Democratic primary in 2016. There were like 21, and it's all because Booker and Warren and all of these people sat out because Hillary was such a strong candidate. And people say that it screwed Bernie, and I think that in ways it did screw Bernie, but Bernie benefited so much from being one of 5 instead of one of 20 when no one knew who he was. Leading up to that primary, not a damn person knew who Bernie Sanders was. And if that crowd had not cleared so drastically, we still, I doubt, would have any idea who he is.
Do you
Bernie.
That's
think-
fair.
Yeah.
Do you think Bernie wins that election?
Versus Trump.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard to say. I think it's very strange how
I
we
also think it's hard to
externalize
say.
electability, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think, and I did this with Julian Castro, and I don't know why, but, like, I thought Julian Castro was an incredible candidate who I didn't think anyone would vote for. And I don't know why I do that, because I think he's a great candidate, so I don't know why I would externalize that and be like, well, no one else would think that. But, like, we often externalize electability and say, who do I think other people would be willing to vote for? And I don't know where we get a basis for that. I don't know where we can establish a standard of what we think other people are going to vote for.
Or whether we even should, which I don't think we should.
Agreed.
Because it goes...
Agreed.
Right.
Okay. That idea of a wasted vote, I hate it. A wasted vote is
Oh,
one you
yeah.
don't cast, that at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Okay.
Agreed.
Does anyone have anything else to comment on in terms of political correctness and socio-political polarization? An argument for or against Trump, his foreign, his fiscal policies. We didn't touch on his tariffs or trade war with China yet, which I'd like to brush over. But also, I'd like to introduce a new topic for the remainder of this State of the Union section. Current candidates and alternatives. Do we have does anybody in chat or anybody in the panel like any candidates that have been presented thus far? I'm having trouble.
They're not going to get it. But I still think...
What did we just say about
Yeah.
electability? Like,
No,
what
I
we
just-
just
Don't-
said?
I know-
Tell him,
I know-
Sierra.
I know it's not happening, but I'm still going to pledge my full support behind them until I can't any longer. But
Who is it?
Elizabeth Warren.
Oh.
I am a big fan of Elizabeth.
Brrr. Ooh. I just made a lot of weird noises because a lot of things happened.
A lot of science.
Thank-
You certainly
He
made
had
a
a lot of-
sound.
He had
Thank.
a lot going on in his soul.
Look,
right
I
there.
heard Elizabeth Warren, and then Black Saint gifted a sub, and then I got. Look, I'm very moist right now. All right, does anybody, Finn? Did you want to elaborate, or does anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go for it.
I fall pretty left wing on certain things. So I found someone whose policy agenda matches with mine as much as I can find. So I very much support the efforts she has made so far to prevent government corruption. So she established the CFPB, which is an independent government agency it's the Consumer Finance Protections Bureau. It was an Obama era thing. Mick Mulvaney has been put in charge of it, but Elizabeth Warren created it. And the purpose of it is one of its main roles that has since been ruled unenforceable is that it made sure that lenders had to check if loaners could pay back the loan before they loaned to them. So it's an independent government agency that has independently overseen.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? The loan agencies would have to make sure that the spender can pay back the loan.
That the borrower can pay back the loan before borrowing to them. Yes.
Why?
Because
predatory lending. Because
isn't that what collapsed the housing crisis? Housing crisis?
This has caused serious recessions multiple times.
That's why we went to the first one. Well, the first one, the one in our lifetime, the biggest one in our lifetime was
the housing market bubble.
Yep.
That's too close to the economic thing. All right, you continue speaking. I'm not gonna chime in on that at this juncture.
So I do believe in stronger social programs. I support my public libraries. I support, having a fire department not ask if I can afford for them to put out my house. I think that certain things don't make sense in a profit system. So I do support the decommodification of some goods by having them taken on by tax dollars. So one of those things is healthcare. I do think that we should have single-payer healthcare. I think that insurance inherently is predatory, and that that our healthcare costs and our private spending and public spending are just ridiculous compared to the rest of the world. So I very, very much support single-payer healthcare. And I like her plan for it. I think that so corruption in politics is one of her highest priorities. She also implants on one of her other highest priorities is income and wealth inequality, and those are things that are very important to me too. Some of her short-term plans to fix this are maybe a little bit dramatic, but I think that so is the situation that we're in with income and wealth inequality. So while I would not normally support something like a wealth tax, I think that the distribution of wealth is so lopsided and haphazard that something like that would make sense for a temporary balancing solution.
I hear you.
This is just a question outside of that. So when you look at like what they stand for and kind of their part of the system, Elizabeth and Bernie are very close in a lot of the same things. I mean, they're doing it different ways, but their stances on things are very close. What puts her above Bernie in your book?
So I think that there is something disingenuous about Bernie's platform. So Bernie and Elizabeth, I think I like both sides, right?
What's so funny?
He was talking about Bernie. I did the.
I'm once again asking. No, I think that what Bernie and Elizabeth are pitching are very, very similar capitalist systems with strong social networks or strong social safety nets, right? This is Keynesian capitalism. So it's Keynesian capitalism. You can look it up. Anyway, so what Bernie pitches it as is a socialism revolution, which it's not, because socialism is not replacing capitalism under his platform. So it's kind of strange to me that he calls himself a socialist.
Are you saying our system isn't largely Keynesian now?
It is.
Oh, okay.
I think it is.
Okay.
I don't think that adding healthcare to that would be a strong shift towards socialism, because it's just decommodifying one more aspect that already decommodify aspects to begin with. So, it's like I imagine us trying to have a debate about opening public libraries in 2020 and people being like, giving stuff away for free, these socialists, you know? And that's a good social program that I think is really beneficial for the United States. And I'm a tax and spend person. I very, very much support high taxes and very and heavy government spending.
Okay, and you feel Elizabeth Warren
sorry,
will spend the most?
What's that?
And you feel Elizabeth Warren will spend the most?
No, not necessarily, but I think that the things that she intends to spend taxes on are the things that align with me. Anti-corruption, and what I was saying before is that I think that Bernie and Warren have the same plan for the most part, but Bernie calls it a social revolution, and Warren calls it capitalism with tweaks. And I think that that's more accurate. So I think that she is a capitalist who thinks that certain things should be decommodified. And I think Bernie is also a capitalist who thinks that some things should be decommodified. So when I see one of those, like, no, Bernie is not saying that we should shut down all corporations. We should seize the means of production. We should redistribute the wealth entirely. We should end private ownership. Like, these are socialism. What we're actually pushing for.
Corporations are socialistic in nature. They can't exist without government intervention.
No, they cannot exist together. In socialism, you cannot have private ownership. There is no such thing.
Okay.
Like, that's rule 1 of socialism, is that no ownership is private.
Okay, you're right. It's another rabbit hole.
The definition of socialism right now, it'll say there is no private ownership.
Well,
that's like
you said before with capitalism, how you could have like a totalitarian capitalist society. There's gray areas with all this shit. So yeah,
right, but that's because one's a political system and one's an economic system. Right? One determines how you elect your lawmakers and your hierarchy of power. One determines how you exchange goods and services and how you own property.
Yes.
So like, one doesn't, they don't overflow that much.
Okay.
Like, while the government regulates some aspects of capitalism, like, they operate technically independently. And if we were like, so let's push things to an extreme.
Nope, we're not going down this rabbit hole. We're not doing it. I want to know who everyone likes to vote for.
I'm just saying, if Trump were actually an authoritarian and changed our democratic system to become some sort of like dictatorship, we would still be a capitalist society.
Not if we nationalized and monopolized under
but, like,
government.
We don't necessarily have to do those things under an authoritarian regime, is what I'm saying.
But what would Trump have control over, if not like the freedom of association and
the laws
production?
And police, but not, like right now the government hardly touches those things. Right? Most of those things operate independently. There's a lot of freedoms that corporations have within the greater democracy, and in an authoritarian dictatorship, the corporation could still have a lot of those freedoms, right? It's just up to whatever the dictator, because it's just under a different political system. That's why I'm saying it's important to distinguish the difference between a political system and an economic system.
I agree.
But yeah, I think Warren's probably my first choice. I think that I'm going to end up voting for Bernie because his policies are more like mine than a lot of the candidates in the field. I really hope Buttigieg doesn't get it. I'm really glad Tulsi Gabbard is gone.
Ooh,
so
harsh.
For me, Joe Biden, he's gonna come to my house and kiss my wife on the lips.
he has to grab her by the head though.
What? If I don't vote for him, so I'm scared of that. I agree with what Finn said there. I think, and this is just me, if the Democrat, I say we, but I'm not a Democrat, but if the Democrats do not put a candidate forward that has an ideology that is for people, like for the common individual, I don't feel like we have a chance to win that election. And I know it's sad to say. So you have Warren and Bernie. There's a couple other that fall into it, but if you look at it down the list, Warren and Bernie are very similar on almost everything they're saying. And what they're campaigning for is a separation of, it's not even a separation, but a way to get corruption more so out of government and give the individuals that are throughout our country more from their tax dollars and stuff like that. And a lot of people are, when you hear, like, my Republican friends, when every time they talk about Bernie, they're not telling me about his things. All they ever say is, stuff isn't free. You just want free stuff. You just want free stuff.
Free.
And we always have the argument, and it's the same thing. I don't want free things. I understand something has to get paid for, but does the way our medical system currently work at all? No. Why do I have to pay $7,000 out of pocket before the insurance that I pay like $500-600 a month for begins to pay, or takes up the rest of that, the money for that? Why does that happen? Or why can someone charge me $60 to hold my newborn infant, because that's a charge that they'll give you at the hospital? Why do we have nothing there that says, you know, hey, I'm paying insurance, but it's a scam? And, you know, another scam, car insurance. I get a ding on my car, it costs $300 to fix. I have to pay a $500 deductible to get the insurance to fix that ding.
Don't remind me.
So, and that car insurance isn't on the ballot, but that's just it. I think insurance and the way we look at it is a big part of what's going to sway my vote. The next part that's going to take my vote, the reason why it's hard for me to ever vote Republican, because very few Republicans will come to it and won't make decisions based upon religion. So
yeah, I do see a lot of that.
That's very hard for me to put my vote there, because that isn't something that I would make decisions based upon. So if
right, this
you're
is not a theocracy.
Yeah, if you're gonna ask where my vote's gonna go, it'll probably be Bernie. If Biden wins the primary, it will be, hopefully Bernie stays in it, or Warren. Those would be the ones that got my vote.
Bernie and Warren thus far.
I will probably be voting for anyone who is not Trump in this election.
And depends.
What does that mean, though? Are you saying Democrat no matter what?
I'm saying I'm familiar with who is left in the field, and I'm saying that no matter who it is among those people, they are infinitely better than the monster who.
I feel that.
Including independents.
I think that at that point I would still end up voting for the major party, just because at that point I'm voting for not Trump, and the most practical not Trump vote is where my vote will.
So you're saying Democrat no matter what right now?
In this election, yeah. But it's not Democrat no matter what. It's not Trump no matter what, because like I'm intimately in, like, I know a lot.
That's all right. That's fair. Finn has proven himself quite informed, so at least he knows
there's
things.
There's a podcast that I highly recommend to everyone. It is called Trump Inc. And
Oh,
it
God.
is a deep dive into Trump's misdeeds.
No.
Specifically in terms of emoluments and like making money and the blend between his administration, his charities, and his business. And it is disgusting. And in some of the best journalism I've ever encountered. ProPublica kills it.
Keep that in mind, peeps. Trump Inc., you said?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, guys, we do need to speed this up. I kind of lost track of time thinking about authoritarian capitalism. Just like crushing my soul over here. So, guys, please tell us which candidates you think look promising, because we do need to take our chat break to address any questions and concerns from them. Deadlift will... Oh, Blue, you want to chime in?
No, I was gonna say, like, for me, like, I still have to look into like independent
Yeah.
candidates and all, but like of the Democrats, I told you I was leaning like Yang and Booty Man, but Booty Man has the egg for me just because.
Booty Man.
Yeah, I always like up his actual like spelling or like pronunciation. So
I think it's Booty.
but yeah, I know like I get there now, but like 10 minutes from now I'm gonna mispronounce it. So he's Booty Man to me, and I like his stance on teachers being paid more, raising minimum wage. I gotta look into the Medicare issue, like what his stance on that is, because that's huge for me, with all the medical shit in my background. So, but I don't like the whole thing with Andrew Yang with the income, the universal income. I think that's a bad mistake, but.
Deadlift?
Buttigieg's Supreme Court policy is actually unconstitutional. But anyway,
Whose?
Buttigieg.
Oh.
What's his Supreme Court shtick?
He wants to. So a lot of Democrats want to pack the court to 15 judges, but his specific policy is to pack the court to 15 judges, make 5 of them Democrat, 5 of them Republican, and 5 of them independents that are decided by the 10 Democrats and Republicans, which is like actually unconstitutional.
That's
so
weird.
There are a lot of things in Buttigieg's policy platform that, like, when he first came out, I was like, this guy is the coolest thing I've ever seen. He knows a bunch of languages. He's, like a military vet. He's from the LGBT community. He's like a left-wing Democrat. Like, I love this guy. What are your policies? And he was like, well, I'm not telling you yet. And then they came out, and then it was like, oh, God, what are you doing?
Oh, God. Finn, thank you for the lowdown, sir. Deadlift candidates you're interested in thus far, if any?
I mean, it's not really that deep. I mean, it's either going to be Bernie or whoever else is not Trump. So.
Any particular reason you're pining for Bernie?
To be perfectly honest, outside of Elizabeth Warren, which I really was a fan of up until like the recent, I don't like politicians when they manipulate certain, I guess you want to say, like, movements as a means to combat and demean their political opponents. Other than that, I love Elizabeth Warren, but that's the main reason why. Otherwise, I was going to vote for her, but I don't like that little small mind game thing people use. They try to use other social groups as a means to dissuade from other politicians, especially the Democrats. So, yeah.
Identity politics. Fair enough. Mm-hmm. Sierra?
So I would love to see an independent candidate like actually making headway, but right now, I mean, there are 12 valid libertarian candidates, none of which we know almost anything about, plus, I mean, a 13th being Vermin Supreme, but that doesn't count. Then, so as for like what we actually have information about right now, like what I have like a good amount of information about, I don't really like anybody, but I like everybody more than Trump, to be honest. I will not say Democrat no matter what, because I really would like to see like a libertarian candidate make headway or a Green Party candidate make headway, any other non-Democrat or Republican. But from what I'm looking at right now, I would probably say Bernie, because he seems to, one, be one of the ones that has the most likelihood of beating Trump, and two, because he is does seem like he is wanting to help reduce some of the corruption within the government, and I think that could also be a step towards working out of a two-party system and diversifying the government a little bit more.
I hear that. I can't answer that question myself. I'm with Sierra in that I want to see what the libertarians can bring out. Like I tell people, I've been saying this since like 2008, vote as libertarian as possible. That's my best advice for my beliefs. But that doesn't always mean it's going to be someone who's part of the Libertarian Party. So like I didn't even know they had like 13 candidates right now. I thought they were making an announcement
12
and like
plus Vermin Supreme.
Vermin is not a He's trying to give everyone free ponies and shit.
If you go to the Libertarian website,
oh god,
or if you look up who the Libertarian candidates are right now, and it gives you like what the specifications are for having to be listed there on the official website as a party for the Libertarian, or as a candidate for the Libertarian Party. And there are 12 people, and then Vermin Supreme is the last one. And I hate that he's on there, but he's on there.
There's a dude named Vermin Supreme.
Blue, don't
even get into it. You don't want to know.
I would love him.
You're either gonna run away with it or you're gonna hate him. It's gonna be an extreme. I know it.
Does he have old school
Vermin,
rule
look,
views? 'Cause
you know what? You want a cool ass dude with a hat? Check out Dan Taxation as Theft Berman. He's got dank memes. He's on Instagram. He has a big yellow hat, and he's a cool dude. I've actually talked to him before. And like I said, he has a big hat. I'm just saying. Sierra, what were you saying?
The official things here are almost nothing. Like, so there's 7 points if I'm on the Libertarian Party website now. And it says, the list above includes Libertarian Party 2020 presidential candidates who have met the following criteria. And the following criteria is must have filed FEC2 with the Federal Election Commission. Candidate must be a sustaining member of the National LP. The candidate is legally qualified to hold the office and must be registered as Libertarian. The candidate must have a functional website and or Facebook page that can be linked from lp.org. The candidate has professional quality photos, especially a headshot of at least a 1-minute video with audio of the candidate speaking. The candidate must have a dedicated campaign manager, and the candidate must use the word libertarian on his or her campaign material.
So I am actually running for president in 2020.
Right?
That's
That's all you need to have. That's it. Those 7 things. And so
Nice.
there are 13 on the list of that. Yeah, Vermin Supreme's the last one with his fucking boot on his head or whatever.
Yeah.
I take it
Sierra-
back. After seeing what he looks like, I'm voting Vermin Supreme.
I fucking
Yeah.
hate where you're
That's
going to
just
hell.
me fuck up.
Stop it.
That-
All right, guys,
I don't
we're done
like
with
that we
this.
Called it a stupid boot. I'm just gonna say that. I thought it's a very nice boot.
It's a boot you put your penis
Sexy
in.
boot.
All right, so we're moving on. I am going to chat now. If you guys have any questions or comments you'd like us to address, now is the time. 15 minutes for that. Somehow I got carried away and lost in everything. We're
Imagine
gonna.
that.
That never
We're-
happens.
Slurp doesn't get carried away and lost in things.
I'm trying, guys. All right, I set up a nice structure. We were doing good until we hit this topic.
I
I'm
mean-
bad at math.
We did pretty good, right? Like, we've got 10 minutes left.
We have 40 minutes left. All right,
I thought it was till 10.
10:30.
3 hours.
I thought I said 3.5 hour hard cap.
Oh, maybe you did. I thought you said 3 hours. I was gonna say we still have plenty of time.
What did I say, guys? Don't make me second guess
I
myself.
don't know. I don't know what you said.
I'll-
I thought you said 3 hours.
I
Maybe
can't.
I was wrong.
I can't look. Wait, I can look on my phone. All right, guys in chat.
I'm here for however long I need to
Finn,
be here.
you
I
don't-
give a shit.
What are you doing, Finn? You're not a chatter. Someone get this man a 7-Up. What would your ideal libertarian platform be? What, like a target issue, or
Well, I
like?
mean, like what would you? Because like you're telling people not to say Democrat or nothing, but then you're saying I would vote. I'm hoping libertarians show up. So you're not giving me like I want this guy for this reason.
I
So
don't
it
have
sounds
a
like you're
guy.
Saying, right. So that's what I'm saying is like. What
What's the
is
platform?
your like? What would you look for in a libertarian candidate?
Oh,
Because you're already saying I would vote for this party, but I don't have a person. But then you're telling people don't say vote for their party and not a person. You know? Because I said in this election
I
I would
think-
vote Democrat or bust.
no,
And you're saying
don't
I
think
would
so.
vote.
No,
would vote
I-
Libertarian.
That's why I specifically said to vote as libertarian as possible, which
like
sometimes
libertarian
won't
ideals.
come from the Libertarian Party. As you can see, you have people like Vermin Supreme on there who want to give everyone ponies. To answer your question, though,
What's wrong with ponies?
they're not free, all right? I mean, they can be if you breed your own
Stuff
ponies.
isn't free!
Exactly. Thank you. What's it called? So, basically, I want to shrink government. I want to get government out of as many institutions as we can. What I would settle for as what I think would be a reasonable compromise under libertarian ideology, which I'll probably get rocks thrown at me by fellow libertarians for saying, we could we could keep and revamp welfare programs, maybe even get some sort of healthcare safety net, but we have to cut a lot of spending for that to be feasible. And we can take that by abolishing the DEA. We could cut our military budget in half. We could maybe consolidate out of the three, maybe two of the CIA, NSA, and FBI. We might even be able to do away with the NSA or CIA. So basically, my focus under libertarian principle would be culling the police state, first and foremost, as a way to cut spending. Then, the universal basic income is actually interesting. I'm still kind of learning about it and how different countries have implemented or proposed implementing it. And it seems like it could be a better alternative than the sort of system we have in place now, where you have to, like, meet certain criteria, or you have to, like, go through this sort of weird vetting process. And I think you'll all agree that they kind of fuck people insofar that, if you're working just below a line, or just above a line, you get no aid. So you're actually incentivized to a degree to work less or not work. And no, I'm not one of those people who thinks, like, people don't work because they want the money. What I am saying, what I've seen firsthand, is that people in my family, for instance, we wouldn't get assistance even though we're living under that sort of poverty level, I guess you would call it. So there is that sort of de-incentivization there. I think if we did have a universal basic income and we kind of calculated what the average person needs to live, at least relatively.
UBI is so counter-libertarian.
It is.
You're
It
a
is.
libertarian who supports UBI?
No, I don't support UBI in and of itself. Ideally, we wouldn't have UBI. But if we can get UBI to replace all of the other social programs we currently have with all of their relative bureaucracies and branches, then yes, I think that would be a viable compromise to make. Okay,
so out of curiosity, if someone ran for president under the platform, let's bring child labor back, wouldn't that technically be the most libertarian candidate in the field?
Oh, man.
We should allow people to work. Like, what do you consider a child? Are we talking 4 years old? Like,
I mean, child labor laws are established, so like it's not me judging what a child is. It's like there are laws in place, federal laws on how old a child can be before that they can decide they can work. I think
how old is it? 16?
I think it's 14 in some states. I think it's 16 in most states.
I don't like the idea of parents being able to, like, send their 5-year-olds off to work. I think it would take a bit of...
But that's a regulation on the market. If you say that they can't send their 5-year-old children to work, right?
The core of libertarianism is the non-aggression principle and property rights, depending on which extreme you want to take it to. There are extremists, well, what I would consider an extremist, who would say that a child is the property of a parent, which I don't like. I don't like that ideology. But then there's others who would say the child is entirely autonomous and they are their own property. So would manipulating or coercing a child to work for benefits that they probably would not be realistically receiving not be an infringement upon their rights as an individual?
Well, you can't have it both ways. Either they're an individual and they have rights, or they are a possession of their parents and don't, right?
Exactly. You can't have it both ways.
Right.
And that's where I'm saying the debate comes into play. Like,
okay, so in which case is child labor okay?
If we're
okay in any case.
If we're considering a child,
as libertarians, you would suggest that there should be no restriction on what age your employees are, right?
There should be an individual right to decide if you want to work. If you're
no matter how old you are.
I think a parent should be able to restrain you. Like, if a 5-year-old says they want to work, a parent should have a right to come in and be like, you can't do this. Or a guardian,
Right, I
for
mean,
that
What if
matter.
the parent says, I want my 5-year-old to work, so take him?
That's what I'm saying. That's where the idea of the child as property of himself or as of the parent comes into play. And I'm
Right,
not
I think It's a
sure.
little bit of both myself.
But
Like,
you're
yeah, the
saying-
child should be himself, but also there's a degree of like danger having to be put into, like, okay, this is dangerous to this child, and their brain is not all the way developed. So if they say they want to, maybe we should also double check with parents, type of thing.
Okay, so in that case, so who's responsible, the child or the parent?
I would say there's 3 responsible parties. There's
Yeah.
the employer, there's the child, and there's the parent.
I would agree with that.
Okay,
If the
and
child
what-
comes to harm working and it was with the parent's permission and the employer's permission, they should be held legally accountable. If a child, because a child is not aware enough to make a lot of good decisions for themselves, as I'm sure most people would agree.
Okay, so can I build a nuke in my basement?
I would say the risks are too high for that. For that to be
so-
legal.
So at what point is my personal responsibility infringing on the greater public safety?
That's an excellent question and something I think about often. It depends on the situation. People owning nukes, recreational McNukes, I'm not for it. I'm not
so
for
wouldn't
something
there
like
then
that.
also be a point where a corporation or a business in general is such a threat to public safety that they would need regulated?
Yes, but it depends on the nature of that business. If you want to get back into the environmental shtick, then we're gonna need to save that for another time. We do
That's
need,
fine.
because there's a lot of different things. Like, on the one hand, like I said, McNukes, I'm not for it. I don't want Crazy Joe down the road having a nuclear missile. I think the risk to public safety is more prominent than their individual liberty to have that. But with the environment, again, it's not something I think people should have like a unhinged and unhindered right to just pollute and dump waste and stuff. I do think it can be handled outside of the government, though. But again, I know you disagree with that, but that is going to fall into the economy versus government debate we are going to have in... I don't have an exact time yet. It's going to happen, though. It's slated in there. Now, chat has been blowing up. Okay, they're all...
catch up on chat.
They're chiming... Well, this was supposed to be the chat break, and Finn has to... Finn's got to test my waters. Look, the point... I'll be the first to admit. There's a lot...
episode of just you two.
There... I'd be down... Honestly,
With,
I'd
like,
be
a
down for
mediator.
that.
You need a mediator, and then you two.
I'd be down for that.
I got my
There's...
oil ready.
Look, there's a lot of points of contention. I don't have all the answers. I just know that I think that government definitely does not have all the answers, and we need to stop looking to them where we can make better decisions for ourselves.
Yeah, I think government as a system is different than the people who are currently in the government. I think that the potential for the system is much broader than we are willing to give it credit for.
Ideally, I hear that. I used to want everything. Never mind. Slurp wants a libertarian person, whether that comes from a libertarian. Okay, yes, Nick Trav, Dad. Parents should be responsible for their child. They are responsible for bringing the child into the world. The government should mediate or step in whenever someone else is causing harm to another. Yes, I would agree with that sentiment. Though, wait, I'll have the McNuke meal, hold the pickle. God damn it, McTrap Dad. Shiny, I'm not reading that, but I am touching myself to it. That burning in the back of your head is me glaring at you about letting people have unchecked levels of pollution. You better not be looking at me. That's not what I'm contending at all here. I'll call up Anderson Cooper, but Magnus, my wife doesn't eat all the meat off the wing. She's polluting my life. Shiny touche. That's correct. All right. Let's move on to the final section, people. We're in the home stretch here. We are gonna have to cut it a little short. We're gonna give it till 10:20. First question for you. Okay, we kind of covered this, but let's be more specific about it. What would you like to see most from government and or society this year and in those coming?
I would like to see government. I mean, like, I don't know what else to say. Like, I want to see government reduced. I want the size of the government to reduce. I want, like, to see a lot of the corruption that's going on in the government to be minimized. And I want to see us as a society being more aware, not just of third parties, fourth parties, whatever, but even within Republicans and Democrats. I think that it's like you said earlier, there is so much like vote Democrat no matter what, vote Republican no matter what. I just think that we are so quick to blindly vote for our party that we don't educate ourselves. And then like think about, okay, so a lot of people vote for the president, right? Then think about how many people actually vote in the primaries for the candidate that they want to see. I feel like that number is significantly less because people are not educated about what the different candidates are bringing to the table. I feel like people are in like no fault of anybody but their own, because it's all over the place. That information is super accessible, and I just feel like we as a society are like, I don't really care what anybody stands for. I just know that I'm a Democrat and I'm gonna vote for a Democrat, so I'm not gonna vote in the primaries. Just whatever blue person you throw on my ballot, they get my vote. So I would like to see better education from us as a society of like the different political parties. I personally think that like even in schools, once we start getting to like juniors and seniors who are getting closer to that 18 years old, I think we should start having like in their history class or their government, like I had a mandatory government class when I was a senior. And like I think that when it gets close to election years, like they should be discussing the candidates and maybe like not getting into necessarily like what you believe in, but educating them on what people stand for. I just think we need better education surrounding candidates.
I heard that.
I'd like to see less of a focus on my dick is bigger than yours when it comes to the Republicans and the Democrats, and like focusing on the smaller issues, and start focusing on what's actually going to better our country and putting in candidates that will actually like make a difference. But I also think that regardless of what government does or doesn't do, like the people need to start looking outside of Democrats and Republicans. I'm going to vote for whoever is the best candidate, period. I don't care what I'm registered at. And neither should anyone else. And the fact that like 60% of the people did not register a vote in the last election is absolutely deplorable.
Yeah,
it's your country. It's how like your government is, and like who you vote in is going to decide how the place that you live is like run, and that directly affects you. So when you don't vote, like when you're just gonna sit there and be like, what does one vote matter? Like it's so counterproductive. I can't even put it into words.
Oh, continue.
No, I was just gonna piggyback off that and just be like, you have to vote. You have to do the research on the candidates and put forth a vote that you think is going to help what you think of America and like the direction it should take and like where you want it to go. You pick the candidate that best suits that. You don't just say, well, I'm a Republican, I'm registered Republican, so I'm gonna vote Republican, or I'm registered Democrat, so I'm voting Democrat because the rest is a wasted vote.
So
like, no, it's not. It's not a wasted vote. And to think otherwise is the exact problem that we have in this country. It's the people that say it's a waste of vote. They're the ones holding this country back.
I hear that. I could jive with you and Sierra. I do want to take it in a little different of a direction here. I would like to see people stop equating politics with morality, legality and morality as well. I'm going to tie those two together there. but also to start trying to put morality back in politics. So, like, in that sense, again, not using legal arguments to bolster their moral ones. Like, drugs are bad because they're illegal. I'm looking at someone on this panel. I'm not saying who it is, though. Oh, it's Blue. It's fucking Blue. He raised his hand. He's outed himself.
Yeah, that's like,
And that wasn't my stance, by the way. My stance was you can't be mad about being put in jail if you go and buy drugs or something, knowing it's a crime.
Who said? Was it Martin Luther King? Was it Martin Luther King who said we have an obligation to break unjust laws or some shit
the
like
war
that?
on drugs is ridiculous.
I believe so. Yes.
Like, why are our prisons full of people
All right,
who just
that's a whole other can of worms, guys.
Sorry, I'm
No,
sorry.
it's my bad. I was inflammatory with
That's
my
the thing
boy
that I have a
Blue.
lot of feelings about.
It's a thing. But I think it does tie heavily into how people like identify too much with their political party. We see it with the Trump Republicans, like I think Finn mentioned before. 1 minute it's we hate Trump, the next he's elected and we're good Republicans and he can do no wrong. Was that you, Finn, who mentioned that? Okay.
Yep.
I agree with that. And
So true.
I think people need to stop letting government run roughshod over them. Which I get that there's my socialist leaning brothers and sisters out there. I do genuinely believe that their hearts are largely in the right place, that they want to use the great wealth and the great power we've accrued as a nation to help people where we can. It is, I feel, a moral obligation to do so, but it's not a legal one. And ultimately, I do think most of the time it is immoral to initiate force. And at the end of the day, I would really like to see people keep in mind that anything we turn into a law is backed by a gun to the head. So I'd like people to consider that. All right. Deadlift, Shiny, Finn, any of you, what would you like to see in this coming
Let me
year?
kind of throw something real quick. I didn't really talk about like my main viewpoints really, now that I really thought about it. For the most part, if I'm going to follow a political candidate or anybody, really you have to have something that's going to kind of gravitate towards me. And one of my biggest problems right now is no one's actually sticking to a main ideal or just jumps into something else. I'm going to give you an example. So, obviously you guys know I'm black. I care the most about who's...
I had no idea.
What?
I know, right?
So shocked.
Right? But I care more about who's going to
that was a
pertain to my
filter.
interests. No, it's not a filter.
Fuck you, Shiny!
Look, listen, it's Black History Month, but it ain't Black Face Month, okay? Yeah, let me just say this before I forget. So, most politicians, unlike the 60s, when I can say from a different standpoint, we had a lot of more civil leaders that were more organized in that sense. Today, it's not in that same plight. A lot of the ideas that, at least for my community's end, are extremely disorganized, and it's gotten to a point where if there's a candidate, which is one of the main reasons why I want Bernie in the first place, is they will say something, and then it jumps to, oh, I support these ideals. Wait a minute, no, I don't. Wait a minute, yes, I do. Wait a minute, no, I don't. We can play games around here and say this could be something as simple as approving loans at a higher percentage rate compared to previously, or focus on some form of social economic empowerment that is lacking. Just compared to both of those things, because Finn, like you said earlier, which I saw I was laughing and saying anything, I do believe we are in a capitalist society. We always have been. That's why Trump's the president in the first place, which I'm not going to go back into that.
Nope.
So don't say anything. But to be quite honest, I really just hope that they stick to the actual guns. I don't expect it at all, and this includes Bernie, honestly. It's a little depressing. It's gotten to a point now where Trump is really that bad where I really don't care who's in it, and that's dangerous in a way when you think about it, because just because Trump's a bad president now I'm not saying the next person couldn't be, better. But if you're just barely worse, just like slightly a little better than the next candidate, doesn't really change anything. We're kind of getting to this point now where everybody just wants Trump out of office, and they'll get anybody kind of in. And I'm just like, let's actually focus on helping the common citizen instead of just focusing on getting Trump out. I mean, getting Trump out is important, but actually focusing on real issues that people need help with, such as, like I said, African American rights, women's rights, gay rights. You go hand in hand, like I said, when it comes to the actual infrastructure of capitalism itself, which, like I said, I'm not going to go back into that again, but stop smiling and distracting me.
I think you're cute. I don't know.
He's not smiling, he's grinding his teeth.
I know he is. I
I have a shoulder on me. Woo! I'm a big
but
boy.
honestly, just actual political candidates that are going to stick to what they say instead of bullshit. So, bullshit.
It's fair.
So, what I would like to see, simple stuff. I want a candidate that gives a shit about people, like not their personal interests, but hey, I want to make a better country. I want to make a place that's livable. I would love. There's a lot of things that I would like to change. Term limits for Congress. Not allowing bribes and stuff like that. So nobody allowed to take stuff like that. I think that needs to be gone. And I know that a lot of you guys are for making government smaller and stuff like that, but I think that there are things that the government could do. I think the government could do more if we weren't so busy wasting money on BS, doing stupid things. So
better resource allocation.
Yes.
I could get behind that as a compromise.
Yeah, like if we are gonna do it where the government.
Oh, you cut out.
If we are gonna have it where the government has their hands in everything they already do, well, damn, use those hands to do something better. Don't just sit there while I'm making a sandwich and throw my napkin on the floor. Help me spread some mayo on the bread. Do something like that. Damn.
Best analogy ever.
Yeah. So that's me.
I like it, Shiny. Finn, what would you like to see coming up?
I'd like to see a real push towards getting corruption out of politics. So transparency, like more than anything. I'd really like to see an overturn of Citizens United. I'd really like to see transparency in dark money and corruption. I would really like to see the strengthening of certain social programs. I think that the floor in our country is much lower than it should be, and I think the ceiling is a little too high. So I'd like to see the floor raised and the ceiling lowered a little bit. And I think a lot of that has to do with corruption and campaign finance transparency and just government accountability and transparency in general.
Yeah.
I heard that. I could definitely agree with that. Except
what else we should. I forgot about this. This is another thing. Jefferson himself said that we were supposed to change the Constitution every 19 to 20 years, and we've had the same one since he was around.
Did he say
We've
that?
not changed. Yep. Jefferson himself. Every 19 to 20 years, the Constitution should be changed.
I didn't know that. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm not a staunch constitutionalist. Like, it's what, a living, breathing document? Is that what they say?
Depends on your stance on constitutionalism, but yeah.
That's
some
fair.
people say it's a document, some people say that it is immutable.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't whimsically go and change something, but society does evolve. People's needs change. Shit happens. We invent monster truck, Lego, Tesla cars. So
yeah, back then we were riding on horses that were taking dumps in the streets, and now we're in, hover cars and shit. So
I'm still taking dumps in the streets, though. Don't try to stop me for
That's
that.
fair.
Me too, man. It's my God-given right as an American.
I'm an adult.
What the hell, you guys? Hold on now.
I I've taken 3 in this stream alone.
Yes, Label, that is what the amendments are for. You right, but I don't think it happens as frequently as maybe Jefferson would have anticipated, as much as a lot of people might have. Okay. So, we're getting awful close to closing time here. We almost did, I almost did pretty well with keeping time, but I kind of fell short.
During that debate.
I think we all were a little all over the place.
Look, it's up to me to keep the
Not just
peace.
you.
What's it called? I guess campaign financing and reform is a big one, but there's no way we could cover that right this second. We're gonna have to cut it.
Yeah.
I guess let's cut to our closings. We'll do our closings. We'll start top left to bottom right. Name, where to find you, what to expect on your channel or with your content, and the biggest takeaways from this evening. So let's start with Finn.
I'm FinDiesel. You can find me at twitch.tv/FinDiesel, or most of my others are the FinDiesel. I have a YouTube channel with 1 video.
Oh, yeah.
Surprisingly successful video.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, and I can be found at that link. I can't always be found at that link. I got a new job, so I'm working on getting back into my stream schedule. I went to college with McTravdad. What were the other things I'm supposed to do?
Biggest takeaways.
Where to find you takeaways.
Takeaways. I think that it's important to understand and define our terms. So I think it is important to know what it is that we're talking about, especially if we're going to speak about it passionately. I think that it is important to, and that's not a jab, by the way, and not necessarily related to this, which is that we should understand the difference between an economic system and a political system. I think
he really thinks I don't understand the difference
You just got
between.
thrown under the bus.
He really thinks I don't understand the difference. Why do you think that? I don't understand
We're
that.
gonna be here all night.
Here we go.
Wait, hold on, let me
Look,
get comfortable, guys.
So
He
here's the thing.
specifically said it wasn't a jab at anyone. It's okay.
It was.
No, I'm saying
That was
it's
one-
important in general.
Yeah.
I think it is important in general because I think that it is commonplace to say capitalism, or to say democracy versus socialism, or democracy versus communism, and that's not an even playing field. We need to say democracy versus authoritarianism, or communism
Fair.
versus capitalism.
Okay.
But we need to distinguish that we are comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, and not apples to oranges. Now, I think that there's some overflow there, but I think that that's a really important topic that a lot of people don't understand.
Yes.
That's valid.
I heard
I
it.
agree with
I will touch on that as pertaining to this series when we get to me. Finn, thank you for sharing and thank you for being here. Shiny Shoes, you're up next.
Hey everybody, it's me, Shiny Shoes. You can find me at the link that's about to be provided for you in chat. If you're not there, I've been trying to talk to people on Twitter more, so you can find me there. We have a podcast that we run called Nerd Lore, where we talk about stories, theories, and lore. If you guys are ever wanting to talk about fun stuff like that, just message me. We always have room on the schedule for you. The biggest thing that I took away from tonight is we had a lot of information that we kind of went through, but a lot of us are kind of wanting the same thing from our government, and we just want more. We want more, or we want to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. And a lot of us feel like the government, in its current capacity, isn't a successful one in our eyes. So what do we do as the current generation of voters, and eventually we'll be the ones that raising the next generation of children and everything else like that? How do we instill in them that this is what your government should do, and how do we get it there? So
That's what's up. Shiny, thank you. Deadlift.
All right, so you guys can find me on Deadlift for Chips, everything, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I do stream on Twitch as well. Same name, Deadlift for Chips. As well as on my YouTube, I put anime analyst-based videos on there as well. And I got a podcast coming up soon, but don't worry about it because I ain't figured out the name yet. Now, as far as takeaways, you guys are very at least compared to the last time I was on here. I think it was like two months ago at least. Last time I was on one of your platforms, Slurp. You guys
Possible.
are a lot more informative. Yes, which I like. Especially Finn there. There, you know, it's kind of like a back and forth, which I think it's like the first time I see you make that grin face.
Me or Finn?
No, you. No, actually, I like these type of debates. You learn a lot not only about streamers that you're working with on the side. You know, you learn a lot about people. Politically, I'm pretty much on the fence as far as like any actual growth we're gonna get this year. I think the change that we are looking for is gonna take a long time, realistically, at least over a decade. Even with the right president, for us to see any real change. So I'm like partially optimistic, slightly pessimistic about it. I'm expecting Trump not to be in office, but I'm pretty positive he is. And we all pretty much want the same things, so not really much to add.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Deadlift. BigBlueD.
Yay, guys! I'm BigBlueD. You can find me on Twitter under BigBlueD 1970. Wait, is it 1979 or 79? I don't even know my own Twitter.
79.
79. You can find me on Twitch at BigBlueD. I don't really do any other. Oh, and my YouTube is Out of the Blue. What did I take? Oh, and my channel is basically, it's supposed to be that I provide an environment for those who feel out of place or ostracized or whatever. I try and provide like a home for everybody, you know, like an all-inclusive kind of anything you say will not be judged kind of thing. What did I take away from tonight? That basically you can have a discussion about politics, whether you agree with the person you're talking to or not, and have a productive civil discussion, which a lot of people nowadays don't seem to grasp. And like, if this has proved anything, it's that people have to like adopt this more. Start talking politics. Have civil conversations. You don't need to call each other, you know, snowflakes or, you know, rednecks or whatever. Just talk.
Libtards is my personal favorite.
Oh yeah. You don't have to be insulting. Just talk, because that's how things and ideas are formed. It's how we grow as people, and how this country was founded. You have discussions. You put things into action. You learn. You grow.
Well said, sir. Thank you for that. Sierra, you're up.
Hi, I am again Sierra Grove _. You can find me on that on Twitter, on Twitch, on Instagram. I really only use Twitch and Twitter. I stream every single day or almost every day unless there's something like this going on Twitch from around 1-ish until 6 to 8 hours later. My content is I play RPGs, and I'm all about mental health advocacy, inclusivity, and positivity and support. I'm a big advocate. Like, I am a member of the LGBT community myself, and I am a big advocate for the rest of the LGBT community to have a place where they feel comfortable, for anyone suffering from mental illnesses to feel like they have a place where they can feel comfortable and speak freely. We're all about supporting each other and being there for each other. My biggest takeaway from tonight has been that, like, we don't all necessarily support the same candidate. We don't all necessarily back the same ideology or the same, like, party or whatever. We don't all stand in the same place politically, but we all essentially just want different versions of the same thing. Like, what we want, our end goals are not that different, and it just kind of solidifies what we said earlier about the parties not being all that different, but we are all, I mean, I feel like as a society, we're ripping each other's heads off over these, like, basically semantic differences, and ultimately the things that we all want are not that different. It's just like different verbiage, or like slightly different ways to go about ending corruption, or the size of the government, or their hands being in what, or like, I mean, there's so many things that I think we all agree on that we overlook because we're so quick to fall into identity politics or lump ourselves in with a specific party and that be like basically our god. And I think that we all need to, as a society, take time to like. I think we should all step back and just kind of like be more respectful to each other and try to have these real conversations without getting immediately heated about what party we back, because we're not that different.
I hear that and agree. I want to echo what Blue and Sierra said mainly. But yeah, Slurp a Glurp, I stream, blah blah blah. I won't give you their outros because we'll get to that after this. But I'll say my biggest takeaway, kind of a combination between Sierra's and Blue's. Respectful conversation as possible, and not just possible, but like easily fucking doable if you just, you know, chill and express your thoughts and respect each other as human beings. It doesn't have to be this taboo thing to talk politics and economy and religion at the dinner table. Also, like Sierra said, there's a lot of differences that we or similarities, I should say, a lot of things in common that we overlook. Who is whispering in my soul right now? Did you guys hear that? Am I freaking out?
Okay. I heard something. I did hear something. I'm not gonna lie. I heard something. I know what the hell it was. Whispering. I heard something.
So, like, with what Blue said, as I said, I agree. But at the same time, I mean, this wasn't the most polarized panel, too. There are a lot of stuff we seem to agree on. It's hard finding, like, staunch, at least social conservatives to come on Twitch shows. But if you're out there, you're welcome to come on. We do want, like, varying opinions and stuff, which we did have a breadth of here. But I think ultimately we had a lot of core values in common of just, which I think a lot of people have in common, wanting to see decent people in power, if any at all. So yeah, there's that. There's that to consider, that we're all human beings. We're all looking for health and companionship and just simple stuff. We don't have to convolute how to go about getting it so much. But that could be part of a debate for another day. I would like to thank everybody for joining me. I will let you guys go from here. I'm going to address the chat and community and stuff. If you guys would want to come along for the raid, that'd be awesome. If not, you've been a fucking pleasure and here for way long, so you could get some rest.
Is this the part where we whip out our penises? Like,
it is exactly that part.